Happy Friday afternoon, live from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. This is 580 Sports Talk. I'm Brendan Dworzinski. Across the table from me today, Spencer Dupuis. Trenton Kraxner, our summer intern, is on the other side of the glass. Dan Lucero is out still on paternity leave. We have an absolutely jam-packed show coming your way on 580 Sports Talk, a full guest list, plenty of big stories to get to today. We'll get to yesterday's major news involving the Big 12 Conference here in just a second. The conference is for sale in more ways than one. What are the pros and what are some of the cons and which one's more important? That's coming up here in just a few moments. Also, major news for Kansas State basketball today. Coleman Hawkins, one of the best players in the transfer portal. He has committed to Jerome Tang and the Kansas State Wildcats. That's coming up here in about 20 minutes or so. Plus, Rick Peterson of TopSports.News is going to join us bottom of this hour for a day-late edition, in fact, a weeks-late edition of the Lewis Toyota High School Whip-Around. We've got, of course, the spring state championships to get to with Pistol. We will also talk about all the new postseason rules changes that Keisha made official yesterday. That's all coming up in this first hour of the show. Also coming up today, we talked just briefly yesterday when the news broke about Trevor Lawrence's new contract. Is that the kind of quarterback that deserves that kind of money? And of the other quarterbacks that in the last 2 years, last season, this offseason, and maybe before this offseason ends, of all those guys getting big contracts, who has deserved it, who will deserve getting one? We'll break all that down coming up in the 3 o'clock hour today. Derrick is going to join us for our Chiefs Insider, bottom of the 3 o'clock hour. We'll talk plenty of Royals baseball in the 4 o'clock hour. Max Rieper of Royals Review, he is going to join us coming up at 4:35 today. Also, as we get closer-ish to the trade deadline, we're about a month and a half away. Who are some of the players that you hope the Royals target on the market? And who are some of the guys the Royals can actually afford to move at this point? That'll come up in the 4 o'clock hour today. Of course, our 580 Sports Talk headlines. We will preview Royals versus Dodgers this weekend. We will also get to our What Is Wrong With You championship for the week. We'll play some Change My Mind in the 3 o'clock hour today. No on second thought. We decided we all had good takes today. So no on second thought today. We'll do Change My Mind at 3:20. All that and much more coming up today on 580 Sports Talk. And with that, we would love to hear from you and your thoughts on whatever we're talking about on the show today. Hit us up on the Top City Metal Supply text line, 785-272-9429. No more wasting money on metal pieces that leave you with unnecessary leftovers. Top City Metal Supply will cut exact lengths of aluminum, steel, and stainless steel tailored to your project's specifications. Start optimizing your budget with Top City Metal Supply on South Topeka Boulevard, just north of Forbes Field. You can also find us on YouTube. 580 Sports Talk is the name of the YouTube channel. I mentioned it the other day, but we're going to make it official. We are going to give away a pair of tickets to the Diamond Club at the K for a game. We'll hope later this month. We'll work on the actual day of the game. We'll work with our winner on which game we're going to get them to. But we need to get to 580 subscribers on our YouTube channel. That's the number to match the radio station that you've been listening to for all these years. We're at 564 today. We need 16 more subscriptions to our YouTube channel. It is free. All you got to do is log in, hit a button, boom, you're subscribed. We need to get to 580, and then we will give away on the air a pair of tickets for you and a guest to the Royals home game at Kauffman Stadium in the Diamond Club. But we need you to go subscribe to our YouTube first. Again, 580 Sports Talk on YouTube. The biggest story of the day, the biggest story of the week, not just locally, but in the college sports world, is that the Big 12 is for sale. And that is in terms of the actual constitution of the conference, and that is in terms of the name of the conference as well. We got to this a little bit yesterday as the news trickled out during our short show, but it is now being reported on by pretty much every major college sports insider. The guys who specifically do college football, the guys who just do college basketball, those who cover college sports in general. The Big 12 is now exploring taking on both an annual payment from a corporation, a major brand name company, to just buy the name of the conference, as well as exploring possibly taking on private equity money to sell a portion of the conference itself. And that the Big 12 might be 80% owned by the schools, and it might be 20% owned by a private investment group. So if you're making a pro and con list of the good and the bad of why the Big 12 is exploring all of this, is going through all of this, it's pretty simple to put together the pro list, right? And the very simple, very obvious umbrella pro is that the Big 12 and its member institutions would be raking in a boatload of money. So Brett McMurphy of the Action Network, who we've had on the program before, he reported yesterday that one of the companies that the Big 12 is talking to about a naming rights deal is Allstate, the insurance company. You know them well because they're on TV nonstop. You cannot escape them. And that a deal for the name of the conference, not that it would be the Allstate Big 12. No, it would just be the Allstate 12, the Mayhem 16, whatever they would end up calling it. That the value for a deal for the conference's name could range anywhere from $30 to $50 million annually, and that money would go directly to the schools. So right there, just including that, that's $1.9 to $3.1 million per school. Somewhere roughly around $2 to $3 million per school if you sold the naming rights like that. Do you think every school in the conference could probably use $2 to $3 million? I know for a fact they certainly could. Go look at a school like Arizona, one of the new members of the Big 12. It was a huge story last year about how, whoa, they've got all sorts of financial problems. They've got all sorts of things institutionally, athletically specific that they've got to figure out financially. Think they could use an extra $2 to $3 million? Of course they could. So that's one influx of cash there.
West Virginia as well.
West Virginia could use some help. And we'd be, ludicrous to think that KU and K-State could not also find something to do with that cash. So that's just the name. But when you talk about a private investment fund, and we'll get to the downsides of dealing with PE money here in a moment, there was also reporting yesterday that the Big 12 would be open at this point to offering up to 20%, valued at $1 billion, to a private investment firm for, again, 20% ownership of the conference, but $1 billion. If you split that up over 16 teams, you know how much money that is? $62.5 million per school. I don't know if that would be paid up front and the folks from CVC Capital or Redbird Capital or whoever would just walk up to Travis Goff and say, here's $62.5 million. Gene Taylor, here's $62.5 million. Ren Baker, here you go. Jamie Pollard, here you go. I don't know if that's what they'll do, if they'll spread that out over a couple of years. Impossible to say right now. That is a ton of money. That is a hard amount of money to walk away from. That is saying, even if it's just a one-time payment, that is saying up front, you are getting more than an annual payout of the Big 12's media rights just handed to you just by saying, hey, 20% of the conference now belongs to CVC Capital Ventures. And I keep using that name. That's who Pete Thamel of ESPN is reporting is one of the groups the Big 12 has talked to about this. That is all money, $62.5 million, maybe upwards of $3+ million from new names for the conference. That is all money that could go to, pretty obviously, NIL funds, right? That is money that could go to KU being able to say, you know what? A lot of people are reaching out about, and I'm throwing out random names here, reached out about Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant's one of the best cornerbacks in college football, and a lot of schools want him. This is money now in our NIL coffers that we can say, no, player retention, that's our big thing. We're going to keep them here. K-State, same thing. These programs have built themselves in a very similar way in the NIL era, that player retention is a bigger deal than shelling out money for transfers or just for recruits to do the whole pay-for-play thing. They could say, hey, people are reaching out about whoever, we're going to keep them here because we've got all this money. You can, again, help out schools, all the schools that have financial issues or are worried about cutting Olympic sports or whatever. Boom, this is a way to fund all of that. How about football coaches, among other sports as well? Do you remember a few months ago when the news broke that the Division I Council was going to allow unlimited coaches and that it was no longer going to be, well, you've just got the 10 on field and a billion analysts? No, you can give other coaches the headsets and recruiting duties and all of that. $62.5 million, you can assign some of that to, hey, we're going to go acquire extra good coaches and young up-and-comers that other big programs want. All of these things are potential spots of development, potential spots of rewards for both players and coaches. The schools will all find a way to use all of that money should it come into place. This is, again, from Pete Thamel at ESPN. His source within the conference said, quote, every commercial opportunity the commissioner is bringing is a way to close the financial gap between the Big 12 and the SEC. The number one priority of the Big 12 is maintaining competitiveness, and these opportunities potentially help. Okay, yes, all understood. It is very easy to come up with the why if you're trying to argue that this is a good thing. Here are the downsides, though, and there's two that stick out to me more so than anything else. And I'm not even going to talk about the name of the conference because in all likelihood, the name is going to change at some point anyway. No one is going to care after a while. The Big 12 is only 28 years old anyway. This is not like the Big 8 and it started decades and decades and decades ago. This isn't like the old traditional Southwest Conference. All sorts of teams have moved, come in, left, and came back. In Colorado's case, the name is whatever. It's annoying, but so be it. But when you're talking about taking on private equity investments and you're going to literally sell 20% of your conference possibly to a private equity firm, what are the downsides of that? That's something that all the schools are going to have to ask themselves. And all these guys who have reported about that have said, look, not everybody is sold on this. They're open to it. Brett Yormark is obviously open to it, the commissioner of the Big 12. But all the schools not on the same page, and some are going to need plenty of convincing. But I would recommend go ask anyone in the newspaper business what they think about private equity getting involved in their business. Do you think that has benefited anyone other than those private equity firms in the last decade, 2 decades? Because you know who's been hurt by all of that? The businesses themselves.
Yeah.
The people who work for those businesses, for certain. Have worked in this industry for a long time, Spencer. We know that. We know people who work in print media. We know they've been hurt by that. And has it helped the readers, the consumers? Absolutely not. Not even close. But the guys who paid in the big bucks to buy those newspapers, they're the ones who make off like bandits. So we just gave you 4 groups, and one of them actually benefited. The other 3 took a big loss there. That's just one example, and that one's close to the heart. As sports fans who grew up, you read the sports page, or just people who care about media like us who work in this business, that's one example that pops out. The other thing, too, and Matt Brown of the Extra Points newsletter spoke about this as well. What are they going to want with this? You don't just say, we're going to give you $1 billion, $62.5 million for every school in this league as charity. You're not investing $1 billion in this conference just to say, hey, guess what? We just want to have this as a feather in our cap. We just want to say, yeah, we're Big 12 owners now. No, that's not how it works. That's not how it works. So what is that going to look like? What are the people from CVC Capital going to want out of this? Is it as simple as we just want to have a seat at the table? We want to be on the Big 12 board of directors. We want to have a seat, or we want to have 2 out of 10 seats, or whatever it ends up being. Do they want to be able to adjust where the championships are played? They say, yeah, you know what? We don't think we're getting the best bang for our buck having the Big 12 basketball championships in Kansas City. No. We're going to buy out those contracts. We're moving them to Dallas. We're going to move them to Vegas. We're going to go play them in Salt Lake City or Denver or wherever else. We're going to play them in Phoenix. That's what we're going to do. Does it look like that? Does it look like, hey, Brett Yormark, you're not doing a good enough job. We expected more from you. We want you out. Is that the kind of say? Can they talk to the teams directly? Can they say, yeah, you know what, Jerome Tang got all those players, but we invested a lot of money that trickled down to you, and you're really not performing. We think we might want to go in a different direction. That sounds extreme, but if you're going to spend $1 billion on something, you expect to get something back, don't you?
Exactly, yeah.
So that is the major concern for me there. Not even getting yet to the quote-unquote soul of college sports, which just frankly, the question is this right? Like, is this what we want college sports to be. And there are a lot of people, and I fall into this camp at least somewhat too, that will tell you college sports are effectively professional sports at this point anyway. Yeah. But I would go as far as to say, if you start taking on venture capital money or private equity money or whatever, you have gone way beyond anything that the transfer portal or NIL or any of these other things that a lot of people say, this is killing college sports. No, taking literally $1 billion to bankroll your conference does way more to kill what we know is the soul of college sports than either of those other things ever have done. So the question you've got to ask yourself, are you comfortable doing that? My answer is nobody cares in the grand scheme what I think, but no, I don't think that is worth it. Because the other thing too, Spencer, to be honest with you, and I saw a good buddy of the show, John Kurtz, used to be on the air in Manhattan, Big 12 YouTuber these days. He was tweeting yesterday that I get why people are upset, but if you want to keep pace with the Big 10 and with the SEC, you've got to do this. You've got to be forward thinking. That's why the Big 12 brought in Brett Yormark to be its commissioner. And to his credit, he has absolutely done that. He has been forward thinking. Unlike when the Pac-12 hired George Kliavkoff to be their entertainment industry, cutting edge, forward thinking guy, Yormark has actually made it shake, whereas Kliavkoff was completely in over his head. But to be honest with you, one, if the Big 12 is going to do this, and other conferences, we'll talk about that more in our headline segment in the 5 o'clock hour. This is not just the Big 12 who is looking at things like this, especially naming rights. You mentioned Conference USA yesterday. There were reports today from The Athletic that the Mountain West and the American are also considering similar things. Do you really think the Big 10 and the SEC aren't going to do the same thing? And if you're looking at $1 billion for the Big 12, don't you think that the Big 10 and the SEC could get even more and will do something very similar?
Yeah, they're not going to close that gap for much time if they do.
Right, exactly. And the other thing, too, let's be honest with ourselves. We live in Big 12 country. We love the Big 12. If you've lived here and gone to one of the schools in the state or anywhere in the Big 12, or you grew up with Big 8 games or whatever it ends up being, you love this conference, the rivalries, the tradition of it, etc. We're already a minor league compared to those two. I feel bad breaking that news to people who are maybe still in the dark about that. But if you've got to take a step where we're going to reach out to venture capital and private equity, and they're going to bankroll us, and that's going to get us on the other level as the other leagues, then guys, you're already a minor league. Like, I hate to break it to you, but that's kind of the position you're already in. So to me, the answer is no, it's not worth it to literally sell the soul of what I think college sports are supposed to be. But when you look at the pros and when you just kind of understand how the world goes around, you could understand why this is so tempting for all the teams, the schools, and the conference itself.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense for them. But, just as I stated, if they're trying to bridge that gap between the Big 12 and the SEC, you're forward thinking now. You're the one that is going to not get it at the end because you're saying this, you're putting this out publicly, it gets leaked. Whatever it was reported yesterday, I guess. The Big Ten and the SEC are just going to jump right on that and make the gap even larger.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Like, you know who loves this? Who loved that reporting more than anybody else? Tony Petitti and Greg Sankey, the commissioners of the Big Ten and the SEC. Because now the Big 12 gets to be the guinea pig. And how are people reacting to this? What kind of money are they going to end up getting out of this? That's the most exciting thing for those conferences, because they can say, oh, shoot, this is going to work out really nicely for us when it's our turn to go to Redbird Capital or CVC and say, hey, y'all gave them $1 billion? Look at us. We're the big dogs now. We've got basketball that's not as good, but comparable. We've got all these other great Olympic sports programs. We are the big dogs in football. Yeah. We're worth 1.5. We're worth $2 billion. And then you end up in a spot like we're talking about here where the gap is going to end up getting even bigger. And then, again, these firms are going to say, what are we getting out of this? Is this worth our while? And if it's not, what are we going to do to make sure this is worth our while? I think it's much easier, and it doesn't take a whole lot of thought to come up with what the good is in this potential situation. And again, for what it's worth, the name's going to change. I think that's probably a given at this point, is we will have the All-State 12 or the Geico 16 or whatever it ends up being. I think that's almost a foregone conclusion.
I just can't get over what I said yesterday about when they name these darn conference championships.
It's going to sound ridiculous.
So ridiculous. Like the All-State Conference men's basketball tournament presented by Phillips 66. That's just, I don't, too many sponsors.
And it's that, though, that makes me think that I know where this is going to go. Why it feels like it's a foregone conclusion that we're going to get a name change for the conference or that private equity is going to get involved, because it sounds ridiculous. And logically speaking, when you take everything but the finances into account, you say, this is stupid. Come on. This is ridiculous. Why would we do this? So the fact that they are actually considering it tells you how much the financial part of it really weighs on the final decision.
At this rate, the NFL might see fit and make it the NFC, brought to you by.
Oh, yeah. No, I agree completely.
Brought to you by whatever.
Yeah. No, I agree with
Capital
that.
One.
The championship games for the AFC and NFC have been sponsored by what? TurboTax in recent years, or Intuit, the company that owns TurboTax. They could probably go to TurboTax today and say, well, we actually have changed the price. And actually, you're just paying the AFC price now. So we're going to go find someone to do the NFC. And why? Y'all have the championship games. Why not just sponsor the whole conference? It's going to keep happening. It's going to feel like NASCAR, not in a necessarily good way here in the near future.
Well, it's like the final lap presented by Credit One Bank or something.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all I can ever think of now when I think about NASCAR. Like if I ever turn it on at the very end, it's like the final lap presented by Credit One Bank here on Fox.
It's going to keep happening. Coming up on the other side of this commercial break, from big picture Big 12 to Manhattan, Kansas, Jerome Tang and co. landed one of the biggest names and one of the best players in the transfer portal today. What does it mean for the Wildcats on the hardwood? We'll tell you next here on 580 Sports Talk, live from the Kansas Drive to Zero studios. Some major breaking news earlier today, long before we came on the air here on 580 Sports Talk, live from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio, that the Kansas State Wildcats and head coach Jerome Tang had picked up a commitment from Coleman Hawkins, the former University of Illinois Fighting Illini forward, one of the best players in the transfer portal. And that's not just me saying it because I've watched a lot of Illinois basketball. The Athletic had him as the number 5 best player in the portal. 24/7 Sports had him ranked 21st out of over 400 players they've ranked. And EvanMia.com, Evan Miyakawa does advanced analytics for college basketball. He had Hawkins as the number 2 overall player in the portal this year. We talked about this a lot on Wednesday's show when Tim Fitzgerald joined us, talked about what this would mean for K-State, and we'll get a deeper dive into that when we talk to Fitz coming up sometime next week. But this is a great get for Kansas State. All Big Ten, honorable mention a season ago. He's 6'10", averaged over 12 points, over 6 rebounds per game a year ago, moves the ball well, had his best efficiency season as an offensive player this past year, 45% from the floor, just under 37% from 3. A major step up, by the way. He had never cracked 29% from 3 before, shot just about 37% this past season. We had talked for a lot of this offseason about how K-State had gone so guard heavy in the portal, and CJ Jones and Doug McDaniel and Max Jones and all these dudes they've added, Brendan Hauser. Yeah, guards, shooters, little guys, speed guys. In the last month, going back to May 16th, K-State has now added 6'9", Achor, 6'11", Ugana Onyensu, and 6'10", Coleman Hawkins. 3 dudes who played center for their teams last year are now going to be the 3, the 4, and the 5 for K-State possibly this coming season. They're huge.
Yeah, I mean, this morning I had just seen it, I think at like 8:30 or something, as it was just, he had canceled his, I think it was the LSU.
LSU, yeah.
He had canceled that recruiting visit. And I was like, I didn't know if he was going to spend the weekend mulling between the couple schools that he had visited or what. So I just figured that that's what he was going to do this Friday and then figure the rest out. But our one of the friends of the show, CJ Moore, posted on Twitter earlier today, K-State's front line will be huge. Imagine Hawkins at the 3, Achor at the 4, and Onyensu at the 5 will all start. All 3 played center for their last schools. Maybe one comes off the bench, but on paper, those are probably 3 of the best 5 players.
Yeah, let's get to, before we get to the NIL reporting, because that is obviously a big deal of this, and the numbers that have been alleged that Coleman Hawkins is making. We already have some comments about that, both on YouTube and in the Top City Metal Supply text line. So in terms of the team itself, I am willing to put this on K-State right now. I'm going to put this rubber stamp on this K-State team right now. This is a no excuses year for Kansas State.
Oh, yeah.
This past year, you could have argued, well, you lost 2 All-Americans, and they did. That is true. Marquise Noel and Keontae Johnson were both third-team All-Americans. They were 2 of the 15 best players in the country 2 seasons ago. You lost them. You had a bunch of young guys coming in, another very new roster. Understandable. I still think it was a disappointing year for K-State. I think Cats fans, you would agree with me on that. Disappointing year in year 2 for Jerome Tang. But there is an excuse whether you want to use it or not. This is a zero excuses season for Kansas State. Zero. None. Absolutely none. You've brought in a great transfer class. You are huge. You have all the players to play a faster style of basketball, more up and down basketball. You should shoot better. You should rebound better. You've got a true point guard now in Doug McDaniel, who, as long as he can stay on the floor, has proven during 2 years in his career that he does not turn the ball over like your main ball handlers for the Wildcats did a season ago. This is a no excuses year, and that should be a compliment to this program, that you can go from major disappointment with huge roster questions to, in the span of about 3 months now, since they were eliminated from the NIT, to now having a no excuses team. This should be a top 25 team. When the Associated Press preseason top 25 comes out just a couple weeks before we tip off the early part of November to open up the season, this team should expect to be a tournament team. This team should expect to be top 25 throughout much of, if not the entirety of next season. You want to be in that spot. That's a good place to be. And that's why I think it's a no excuses year for K-State. And I hope that Kansas State, if you feel the same way, embraces that. Now, the other part of the reporting that came out today, Sham Charania of The Athletic reported this. Matt Norlander of CBS Sports reported it as well. That Coleman Hawkins is reportedly getting $2 million from a K-State collective. I don't know which one it is. There are multiple. I know Wildcat NIL has been doing a lot of great work recently for the K-State program. Just said this was negotiated with a collective. They never specified who. Those reporters did. But $2 million for Coleman Hawkins. Is that worth it? That's the question that everyone immediately asks. On one hand, I would say no. I like Coleman Hawkins. I think he's a good player. I think he's a good locker room guy. I think he's a good teammate. All positives, and I think he makes K-State immediately better and makes them for sure a top 25 team. He's got 1 year. Is that worth $2 million? Whatever you think worth is, maybe not for the player he is. But if you say, hey, we've got the money, we want to prove that we can swim in this pool, that's a judgment call. And if it makes your team better, if that makes you a Final Four team, if that's the guy who pushes you over the top to making your first Final Four since we were getting ready to enter the Vietnam War, well, then maybe it is worth it, all things considered. We've got a comment here from Barbara on YouTube who says, Illinois fans are saying he sucks and he only did it for the $2 million NIL. So the one thing I will say is most of the Illinois fans I know, and I do know a lot of them. I grew up an Illinois fan. I'm from Illinois. My parents went there, all that. I think most, from what I have seen, are pretty happy with it. Like, hey, he didn't go to a rival. Brett Underwood came from K-State. We're cool with the Cats. We don't like Kansas. They don't like Kansas. Works for us. I have seen KU fans who have said, $2 million for Coleman Hawkins, the dude who had worse counting stats than KJ Adams last year. $2 million for that. It's part of the toxicity between the two fan bases I was talking about earlier in the week. But also, again, it's a judgment call. What is worth it, quote unquote? And for what it's worth, I don't necessarily know that he's actually getting $2 million. I don't know if that is a legit Matt Norlander has seen the contract, and I trust Matt Norlander more than anyone, or if that is Coleman Hawkins' agent said, oh, yeah, this is what we got. Put this in your tweet. It would behoove an agent to do that. Yeah. One way or another, no matter what you're paying him, here are the facts. He probably got a huge bag. Good for him. I don't think he's an NBA player, so good for him getting a bag. And I think K-State's team is better today than they were yesterday. And in the end, that's probably all that matters.
Yeah, and you have to wonder maybe the collectives, if it was a collective of the collectives.
Maybe it's coming from multiple sources.
NIL was able to secure this amount of money. Maybe another one was able to secure this amount of money. And another one's giving him a car valued at $150,000 or something.
That's the beauty and the mystery of NIL is none of this stuff is made public, for better or for worse. And a comment here from Mark on YouTube, too. The feud between Hawkins and Hunter Dickinson is back on. Yeah, that's going to make things nasty at both Bramlage Coliseum and Allen Fieldhouse a couple of times this season. We've got to get to Rick Peterson. He'll join us for the Lewis Toyota High School Whip Around next on 580 Sports Talk. Joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline, he is the one and only Rick Peterson of TopSports.News. Nobody covers local programs, teams, high school, college here in the city of Topeka and Shawnee County better than Pistol. Go find his work at TopSports.News, and of course follow him on Twitter as well at Peterson_Rick. Pistol, it has been a while. How you been?
It has. I've been great. I missed you guys.
I know it has been far too long, but we're glad we got you on today. We have a ton to get to. We've got to get to a recap of what happened for the state championships for the spring sports. But first things first, I want to get to the news that was made official by Keisha yesterday, the changes for state championships in the state, including boys and girls basketball, boys and girls wrestling, and football as well. Let's start with football. This was made pretty clear it was going to happen back in January, but going from one site for every class's state championship game to now 3 sites, one for the sub-11 player divisions, one for classes 1, 2, and 3A, one for classes 4, 5, and 6A. Do you like this move?
I like having the opportunity to see more than one championship game. I think that will be cool. I would like to see, I'd like to see something in Topeka, and that's not going to happen. But I do. I go back far enough to remember when they played 2A, 3A, and 4A at Wichita State, and I'd sit there and watch the D'Angelo Evans and the great Scott City teams and those, and that was fun. So I am looking forward to that part of it.
Is this something that's going to rotate with time, or does it sound like it's Emporia, Hutch, Kiowa County, and they're locked in there for the long term?
Well, I don't know. I don't think anything's locked in for the long term, Brendan. I mean, I think I haven't seen a plan or talked to Jeremy or any of the guys at Keisha to see what they're thinking. I would like to see it rotate. I think it really could rotate and give some different venues, some good different venues, a chance to host.
For wrestling, they're kind of going in the opposite direction of either football or basketball. Not only is Keisha going to expand the number of girls wrestling classes to now mirror that of the boys, which for the record, I think is great and a great representation of how girls wrestling has grown in this state, but they are going to have for 4 different classes, 4 different sites. It'll be Hartman, it'll be Hayes, it'll be Salina, and then 1 unannounced location as well. How are we feeling about the changes for state wrestling?
Well, I agree. I agree with you on the girls. That just shows how much girls wrestling has grown and how much it continues to grow. I haven't seen any numbers, but I got to think it's grown more than any other sport in recent memory, faster than any other sport in recent memory has. It's just crazy how popular that's gotten, and I think that will continue. For a guy like me that's trying to get to a whole bunch of different classes and covering different classes, it's going to be tough because there is going to be so many venues, but we'll deal with that when we get there.
Agreed. And I think that's why we'll get to the basketball changes here in a moment. I think that's why, or one of the big reasons why I'm so in favor of having a smaller number of sites. We should be celebrating these sports and these seasons, in my opinion, Pistol, and being able to watch wrestlers from multiple classes or see football teams from multiple classes that maybe you didn't get to see over the course of the year, and to get to see multiple events in one weekend. That is a major selling point to me.
Yeah, and I will always regret the fact that I never got the opportunity to see Kendra Hurla or Rossville wrestle at state and wrestlers like her. But of course, I had to go where I could cover the most classes, and that's been 6A and 5A at Hartman. But I love it when I can see the smaller schools and the bigger schools in the same setting. I think that's why I love track. And I'm going back to beat the dead horse, but that's why I love track so much, because I can sit there and watch the greats in 1A and the greats in 6A in the same setting.
Yeah, there is nothing in the state quite like what happens down in Wichita at Cessna for state track. We're chatting with Rick Peterson from TopSports.News. It's our Lewis Toyota High School whip around. Pistol kind enough to join us today after the Royals ate up our normal timed segment yesterday. Go find Pistol's work at TopSports.News and follow him on Twitter as well, where his handle is @Peterson_Rick. As for the state basketball changes, Pistol, going from all the different sites, 7 of them, boys and girls, to now down to 4 for the 14 championships between the two gendered programs. I feel like we're probably going to end up with some weird schedules if you're dividing 14 by 4. But again, just like football, I think this is a good team to condense it down to fewer sites.
I do. And I'm hoping that now, White Auditorium is one of my favorite places in the whole world to watch basketball. And I love going down there. I would, again, like to see Topeka, as the capital city of Kansas.
Yep.
I really feel like Topeka needs to be a venue. Now, they messed up. I mean, they had one for years and years, and that kind of messed up with at the time, the management over at that time, the Expo Center. But I think it's time to go back there, and I think it would be good for not only the city of Topeka and the teams, but just the sport in general.
And realistically, if we're talking about getting even more basketball teams, and that means more coaching staffs and more fans, whether it's parents, administrators, school personnel, whatever, what place in the city or in the state other than Wichita is better for hosting that many people than Topeka?
Yeah, no, I agree. And like I said, I think I'm hoping I have no problem at all with the sites that they have now. But I'm hoping that, again, they can maybe rotate a little bit and give some other venues a chance.
The other change for basketball in the postseason comes in the smaller classes, 3A and down, so 3A, 2A, and then the 2 1A divisions. And based on my understanding of the press release from Keisha Pistol, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but they're definitely condensing the number of substates, which is good. It's kind of a ludicrous system before. My understanding is they're going to have twice as many as the bigger classes, so essentially one more round than 4, 5, and 6A. Is that your understanding as well?
I think so. I'm not sure I understand it completely yet. I really don't understand why we just don't do it like we do the 4, 5, and 6A. I think what we need to avoid is what's happened in basketball and in softball and some of those where you got so many good teams, Silver Lake, Rossville, for example, that they end up not having a chance to get to state because they're knocking heads with each other all the time. So I'm hoping we can get past that. But I do have to do some studying and see exactly what, hey, the whole thing is, and if this helps in that regard, I'm all for it. You want to get your best teams to state.
Absolutely. Period. No, that should always be the number one goal. While we're talking state championships, Pistol, we have a listener question for you. This comes from Vance on our 580 Sports Talk YouTube feed. He asks, is Kansas ever going to go back to having a grand championship, the grand state champion? We've all seen the banner at the pressure cooker at Highland Park, 1976. We know about that. Is that something in any sport that you think is ever going to come back?
I hate to say, I really don't think it will. I would love for it to. I mean, I'm old enough that I can talk to the James Patricks and the Bad Brothers, and some of those from that great team that Highland Park had. And I really would love to see how some of those smaller schools could match up. I mean, hey, that Silver Lake girls basketball team this year, I think they could compete at the 6A level. I don't know if they win, but I know they could compete at that level, and I would love to see that. I just don't know if there's a whole lot of people clamoring for that, but I would welcome it. I think it would be cool. I think it would be cool in several sports.
We're wrapping things up with Rick Peterson from TopSports.news, joining us for the Lewis Toyota High School Whip Around here on 580 Sports Talk. Of course, TopSports.news, the best source for all the best coverage of all things prep sports and Washburn sports here in Topeka and Shawnee County. Let's get to a quick wrap-up, Pistol, of some of the headlines from the end of the Spring State Championships. It's been so long since we've gotten to talk to you. What were some of the headlines you saw down at Cessna Stadium from state track?
Well, hey, more state champions from the city and in the county than I remember in quite some time. I mean, just some great. individual and relay performances. Aaron Merritt, Finn Dunshee, Ryan Miller, Jackson Escobel, on and on and on. It was just Josh Sullivan Watson. It was just a great thing to be a part of, to see the local kids do so well.
From baseball, how about the Hayden Wildcats picking up their first state title in nearly the 3A final, 5-3 several weeks back? What a success for that Hayden program, Pistol.
Yeah, they went in, which Hayden has made a living on forever in a lot of different sports. They go in with not a real great record because of the competition they play, and then just had a great tournament. The thing is, Cooper Grace is one of the best players in the state, in my opinion, any class. But they had several other pitchers and players in general that just stepped up and really came through when they needed to.
Unbelievable that a Bill Arnold coach team would be prepared for the postseason, right?
Yeah, no, that's great and great for him.
Let's get to some of the others real quick here, Pistol, some of the other successes for local teams. Softball, Silver Lake finishes as a 3A runner-up. Care Paravel gets all the way to take on Bishop Miege in the 4A, 1A girls soccer final. Rural with a third-place finish in 6A soccer. What were some of the other things that really stood out to you about some of the other spring sports finishing up?
Well, the Care Paravel for sure. I mean, they were within a whisker of knocking off the giant in that class, Bishop Miege, and went to double overtime, and it was a 1-goal game. And same with Washburn Rural. Washburn Rural loses an overtime game in the semis, and those are two of the best, absolute best in the state. It would be nice to see them be able to get a title, but they were right there knocking at the door. And same with, really, again, like when we talked about the other sports, just a really good spring season for the locals. When we've been looking at the Shawnee County Sports Awards, it was really, really tough because there was just so many great athletes. So many great ones. By the way, Pistol, we're a little short on time here, so we only have about 30 seconds. Nyjah Kennedy is the National Player of the Year. How incredible is that for the Topeka High product? Oh, just wonderful. And I got a chance to hang out with Brooklyn DeLay last week, and Brooklyn DeLay and Nyjah Kennedy, and every time those people do great things at their, in their sports, at their universities, it just is such a good thing for the city as a whole. Rick Peterson covers high school sports in Topeka better than anyone. Go find his work at topsports.news. This is the Lewis Toyota High School Whip Around. Thanks, Pistol. We'll talk to you next week. Look forward to it. That's Rick Peterson from topsports.news. We've got to get to a break for the news. We'll talk some NFL quarterbacks coming up on the other side of our national news on 580 Sports Talk, live from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio.
o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk on a feel-good Friday afternoon. I'm Brendan Dworzynski. That's Spencer Dupuis. Across the glass is Trenton Kraxner. Dan Lucero is off for paternity leave. We are here live in the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today. If you want to be a part of the show, you can reach out to us either on the Top City Metal Supply text line, 785-272-9429, or you can jump in on YouTube. 580 Sports Talk is the name of the YouTube channel. Once we get to 580 subscribers on YouTube, we are going to give away a pair of tickets to a Royals game in the Diamond Club. Best seats in the house. I have gotten to sit there one time. It ruled. Not kidding. It ruled. So we're going to give away a pair, but we've got to get to 580 subscribers on YouTube. Once we do that, we will be able to give away a pair of tickets, but you guys got to help us earn it first. 580 Sports Talk on YouTube is the place to go. Just hit the subscribe button. It is free. All you need is a YouTube/Google account. So go subscribe. We've already got 4 today. We've seen 12 more subscribers to the YouTube.
There you go.
We're at 568. We need to get to 580, just like 580 Sports Talk. Look how simple that is. So get a few more subscribers on the YouTube. Again, 580 Sports Talk is where you can find us. You can also find the video stream today on our Facebook page, WIBW News, on Twitter at 580 Sports Talk, and you can even find it right on our website, 580WIBW.com. It is right in the center of the homepage. Right there. It says live stream 580 Sports Talk June 14th, 2024. Click on that. Boom. You've got the video stream right in front of you.
Can we turn around the bit and make it when Dan's out?
I would love that. I would love to turn it around on you guys.
Essentially, when he left last Wednesday at 4:00, I think we were at, how many subscribers were we at last Wednesday at 4:00?
Like 541 or so.
Yeah, low 540s.
Yeah, I think 541, 542. We got 18 in 2 days.
I would love
and
to turn
now
it
we're
around.
already up to nearly 20, over 20.
Maybe it's less so that it's not when I'm here and more so that y'all just like bullying people and just like making them feel bad, which honestly, for the sake of content, I can live with that. I can live with that being the outcome if it's for the sake of content. That is fine. 580 Sports Talk on YouTube is where you can go find us. We'd love for you to subscribe. All sorts of video stuff over there for you to check out, including today's live show. Here in this 3:00 hour of the program, we have a little chat about NFL quarterbacks and contracts after Trevor Lawrence got his big payday yesterday. We'll get to that coming up here in a moment. We'll also play Change My Mind for this week, and we will have our Chiefs insider, Matt Derrick of ChiefsDigest.com, is going to join us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. All that's coming up, plus your comments on the 580 Sports Talk YouTube stream. And we will get to your texts from the Top City Metal Supply text line. We've got one from the 402 that says you can thank Brad Underwood for his recruitment and help on Coleman Hawkins. I imagine that is probably true. Connections matter. Having those bridges not burned, it matters. So Brad Underwood, maybe he is to thank at least somewhat for helping Coleman Hawkins get to K-State. Obviously, that was the big Kansas State news earlier today. Late yesterday, this was right before I think our final segment went on the air, if I'm not mistaken, Spencer. Trevor Lawrence received and agreed to his new contract with the Jacksonville Jaguars. 5-year deal, $275 million of total value with a total guarantee of $200 million. Before we get to other quarterbacks, because I want to explore all of the guys who have gotten a second contract over the last year or so, who we think is deserving and who is next to get those paydays. I'm curious where we land on Trevor Lawrence in general, because we didn't get to explore this a ton yesterday, but I'm not sure there is any quarterback in the NFL for whom there is a bigger gap between how professional NFL analysts and reporters view them and how everyday Joe fan views them. Because if you listen to folks who do, NFL podcasts, the guys who do the Zero Blitz podcast at Yahoo, the Athletic Football Show, the Mina Kimes podcast, those are the ones I usually rotate through. The big NFL reporters, the guys at The Ringer, they all love Trevor Lawrence and say, yes, this is without a doubt obvious. has to get paid. He is that dude. We want him to get some help, but he is that guy. If you just ask the NFL proletariat, how do you feel about Trevor Lawrence? They'd say, Trevor Lawrence? If Trevor's getting that money, what kind of money do you think Tua is going to get? Meanwhile, all those bigwig analysts, they all say Trevor is better than Tua. So, of course, Trevor got that money. Where do you land on Lawrence and where he is right now? I am of the belief, and I said this yesterday, that if you think he is a franchise quarterback, then yeah, obviously you pay him. Obviously. This is the going rate. And honestly, you probably got a good deal for him because you gave him the same maximum value as Burrow with less guaranteed money. Now, I think Burrow is better than Lawrence, but we know how NFL contracts work. Saying, the highest paid quarterback in the league, that's just a placeholder because the next guy is always the highest paid guy. All of that said, all of that context included, does this work for you that Trevor Lawrence got that kind of money from Jacksonville?
I think it does because I think Jacksonville is a franchise that is not used to even being where they are.
True.
Like they either have one good year and then they're surrounded by horrible years in the past. Like who was the guy? They have Blaine Gabbert.
It was Bortles.
Or Bortles.
Yeah,
yes.
2017. The Blake Bortles, super great defense. They were within like 2 bad official decisions in the AFC Championship game from getting to a Super Bowl. Yeah.
I think that Trevor Lawrence is a good quarterback, and he's a great quarterback for Jacksonville. I think Jacksonville is going to be content on having him around, and they don't think they'll get another chance to get a guy like him. So that's what they did. They paid him what they thought was going to be enough to keep him around and hopefully get to a Super Bowl someday.
I think this is the right move, but the reason why I think this is relevant, it's relevant because it was breaking news yesterday, and you give someone $275 million, that's a big deal. That's a lot of money to an NFL quarterback. I wanted to look at the other guys who have either been paid recently or the guys that are about to get paid. All these guys are going to end up in a similar sphere. I'm thinking of guys who are either going to get, for the most part, going to get their second contract or have just gotten their second contract. Real quick on the Trevor note, we have a text here from the Top City Metal Supply text line from the 785. Trevor better buy some track shoes with that bag. Jax won't be able to keep a competent O-line in front of him, paying him like that. I think the Trevor discussion, and you have heard me say this on 580 Sports Talk since Trevor Lawrence was still in college. I have never been the biggest Trevor Lawrence guy. Most people put him in the class that he is the best quarterback, or was, I should say, the best quarterback prospect since Andrew Luck. I never necessarily felt that way. I would tell you right now, Caleb Williams, I thought was a better quarterback prospect than Trevor Lawrence was, to be completely honest with you. I think a lot of the downfield creation for Trevor at Clemson was more so to do with the pieces around him. I think for Caleb Williams, it was more so because of him. That's a personal preference kind of thing. That said, Trevor Lawrence is also dealing with, as our texter mentioned, not a very good offensive line. And they're going to have to figure out how to make it work around him now that he's getting the big bucks. And I think his offensive coordinator and play caller is an idiot. I think Press Taylor is a dunce. And I don't know why Doug Peterson refuses to make a change or step in or do anything with that part of the ball. I do not understand that one bit. But that's the situation we're now in with Trevor Lawrence. So the other guys who have gotten the big contracts recently, just going down the line here, and I don't think this is completely covering all of our bases, but this is them for the most part. Number one, Joe Burrow. Worth it? Again,
yeah.
This day, apparently the theme of the show, it's like Sesame Street. The theme of the show today is apparently the value of being worth it, because we were talking about that with the alleged NIL payout to Coleman Hawkins when we were talking K-State basketball earlier. But if you're the Bengals, if you're the NFL world, you're looking at what the Bengals did giving Joe Burrow that money. Do you think that deal was worth it? Again, $275 overall, $55 per year, $219 guaranteed.
I think so, yeah.
I would agree. I think Joe Burrow is either in or just like the next one out of the truly elite class of quarterbacks. I love the dude.
And I think he would be closer there if he played a lot more.
If he could get on the field.
Yeah, if he wasn't hurt like last year or he didn't get a chance to play in the postseason.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Burrow is a no doubt easy one. Here's another guy who just got the big contract. $255 million total value. That's $51 million a year over 5 years. $179.3 million guaranteed. Jalen Hurts of the Philadelphia Eagles. I think the answer is yes. It was the right decision to pay him. Yes, definitely. I would say definitely it was the right decision to pay him. That said, I don't think Jalen Hurts is in the same class as Joe Burrow. I don't think he's in the same class as Justin Herbert, who we're going to get to. I'm not sure he's as good as Trevor Lawrence. I really have those questions about Hurts. So I think it's a yes. He was your best option. You have found a lot of success with him as your starter. You pay that dude. But I do think there are questions about what the ceiling is for Jalen Hurts.
I would agree. I think that you put a good team around him, and that's what happens. They put a great offensive line in front of him for all those years with Kelsey, anchoring as the center, and then you have the wide receivers that they have, before. Then you move over to defense, and great defensive line. You've continually built that through the draft and linebacker core, and you get some guys in free agency in the secondary. I think that he's benefited from being on a good overall team the last few years, but also by benefiting, I mean, he's had the benefit of throwing to great guys and have a great line as well.
I like Jalen Hurts. I like the way he carries himself. I think he is a good player, but I think he's more, you know how I feel about Dak Prescott. I have made that very clear. I think he's more Dak Prescott than he is Joe Burrow. And I think he's much more Prescott. In fact, we'll get to Dak coming up in a minute. I just mentioned Justin Herbert. I think Justin Herbert might be the most, I was just talking about how the national NFL media world views Trevor Lawrence versus the way regular fans feel him. And there's such a huge disparity. I think this program and y'all who listen to us every day have a very different view of Justin Herbert than the rest of the world does. Herbert is such an enigma to me. And I've said this before. You watch him play. I thought this because I watch as much football every weekend as I can. I watch all the games that are on local TV. I got Red Zone going. I occasionally will have to seek out alternative methods of watching other games that I want to watch, but I watch as much football as I possibly can every single week. I cannot watch every single snap of any given team other than the Chiefs and the Packers, but I watch as much as I can. When the Chargers played Green Bay this past year, I was watching Justin Herbert just slice and dice Green Bay's Swiss cheese defense until the ball got to his receivers. I saw a ball hit Quentin Johnston right in the middle of the chest plate of his pads, right in the top part of his numbers. The point of the ball hit him right there and get dropped. I saw Joshua Palmer have a ball hit him squarely in both hands, and he couldn't haul it in. I saw all the things you want out of a quarterback, and yet they couldn't finish the deal. And I thought, God, he has no help. I think he's got all the tools. I think you watch him for a full 60 minutes, and Chiefs fans, you have because he plays the Chiefs twice every year. And you think, or maybe I'm projecting, but I think, God, he's got it all. But he's never won anything. He's never taken the division away from Mahomes. He's never won a playoff game. In fact, he was the starting quarterback for a team that has one of the worst playoff disasters in NFL history. It's the Jags overcoming the Chargers 2 seasons ago, and it's the Bills over the Oilers coming back from 32 down back in, 91, 92, whatever year that was. Like, those are your worst playoff debacles short of the Falcons in the Super Bowl. That one's in a tier all of its own. So Herbert, again, you pay the guy because he's good. He's got the skill. He's got the look. He's got the feel, all of that. But the question is, when is he finally going to win something? And you could come back to me and argue, well, Brendan, he's in the same division as Mahomes and the current Chiefs. Of course he hasn't won a division. Look at Brady and the AFC East for 20 years. None of those teams could win that division because the Patriots were dominating it. But if you're that guy, shouldn't you say you should go toe-to-toe with Mahomes? So how much of it is Herbert's problem? How much of it is the fact that the Los Angeles Chargers, save for 1 year in 1994, have just always been this team? I think it's probably more so the team factors, but you at least have to ask about it with Herbert because that's how we judge quarterbacks. So that's the question with Justin Herbert. I think it was a surefire thing. You had to pay him. I think it's worth it. They've got to figure out some way to help him, though.
Yeah, and I think, you bring in a whole different regime, and that's where you get more people thinking differently than they did in the last regime.
Mm-hmm.
New GM, new head coach, completely overhauling the team, and it takes more than 1 year to do that. So they've started already, but next year I would expect some more changes around Herbert as well.
If they can't make it work with Harbaugh there, who I think is a great coach,
yeah,
it might just never work. The only other one here, this was not his first contract, his first big deal, but it's his most recent one. It's worth throwing in Jared Goff.
Yeah.
This is the one the most to me that makes me feel like I don't know if it's worth it. I don't. I think Goff is a good player. I think his story, the way he has resurged in Detroit, is awesome, even though I hate the Lions. But man, you're giving a whole lot of money to a guy who you win with and you don't win because of. $212 million. They are giving him $53 million per year, 170 guaranteed. That is the second most dollars per year for any quarterback in the league, any player in the league, for Jared Goff. He's good. He is good. But like we talked about, we were live at Prairie Band when he signed this deal. It was a Monday afternoon. We were talking to Matt Verderam as Jared Goff signed his new deal.
Yep.
He's good. I don't think you win because of him. I think these other guys on the list, Trevor Lawrence, if the Jags are going to win, it's probably because of Trevor Lawrence. If the Bengals win, you're winning because of Joe Burrow. I think you could make that argument about Jalen Hurts. And honestly, the best argument for him is Super Bowl 57, when the Chiefs beat the Eagles and Jalen Hurts was awesome. He had the fumble that got returned for a touchdown. That was bad. Everything else, he was awesome in that game. Justin Herbert, the Chargers can win because of him. I don't know that the Lions win because of Jared Goff. And that's the biggest question mark, I think.
Yeah, I would agree with you there.
Maybe that's dumbing it down too much, but that's the biggest question mark. The guys who are going to get paid. There was a report today. If you're on Twitter, okay, maybe you've seen this guy. He goes by the name Pretty Ricky on Twitter. No, he is not the former rapper Pretty Ricky. Is he still making albums?
I have no clue who Pretty Ricky is.
God dang it. This is the worst part about Dan being gone. Now I'm the old guy. 29. I should not be the old guy on the show, but so be it. I am. I remember when Pretty Ricky was putting out albums. But there's this guy, he's an anonymous Twitter user who, for pretty much every major story in terms of NFL free agency and trades this offseason, has beaten the insiders. He was on the Trevor Lawrence news yesterday, 20 minutes before Ian Rappaport was, and well before Adam Schefter was. This dude knows his stuff. He tweeted out today that Jordan Love is going to be the next domino to fall in the quarterback market. He is the one who is going to get a contract next. I think we all agree the three guys who are next to get paid: Jordan Love in Green Bay, Tua Tagovailoa in Miami, Dak Prescott in Dallas. Who do you think gets paid first?
I think, I guess it would be Jordan Love. I think the Dolphins are going to wait and figure out they've got a lot more numbers to crunch, I feel like, because they have so many other people they're paying so much on the roster. And Dallas, you have more responsibility. CD Lamb didn't show up to minicamp.
I think it simply comes down to this.
It's going to be Jordan Love.
Green Bay's got the best front office.
That too.
Green Bay's front office is run better than either Miami's or Dallas's is. So let's ask the same question real quick before we get to a commercial break with these other three quarterbacks. Dak Prescott is going to get a sickening amount of money, and good for him. I don't blame him for it. I never blame the players for getting the money. Is Dak worth what he's going to get paid? Like, if he signs in Dallas, he's going to get a ton. If they let him hit the market next year, which would be outrageous, he's going to get historic money, truly historic money. You have to pay him. Like, if he hits the market, he's going to end up going to a team that has no better option and would immediately make them better. If he re-signs in Dallas, they don't have a better option. I don't think you're winning a Super Bowl with Dak Prescott. He is the line. We've said this before. He is the new Dalton line. He is good enough to be your starting quarterback and to be a quote-unquote franchise quarterback. I don't think he's good enough to win a Super Bowl. I don't.
I don't either.
So that's the issue you run into with Prescott. Tua Tagovailoa, we talked a little bit about him earlier when we were talking about Trevor Lawrence. Does it make sense to pay him? Probably. Is he actually the guy? I don't know. Tua was really bad when Brian Flores was his head coach. Brian Flores was also a really bad head coach.
Yeah.
He was just bad at the job. I think Tua's good. I am a Tua guy. I have been for years part of Tuanon, okay? I believe in Tua. The Dolphins are going to have to give him so much money.
Yeah, how do
they have to give him at least what Lawrence got, right?
Yeah, but how do they do it?
You just assume Tyreek Hill's gone.
Yeah.
That you backload the deal a little bit so you can afford the new Waddle contract and Tyreek Hill's contract and all those one-year deals they gave guys on defense. And you just say, we're not going to bring back Tyreek Hill after his contract expires. Or frankly, we're going to have to cut him because of that $60 million cap hit.
Yeah.
So the Tua situation, I think Tua and Trevor Lawrence, they'll be tied together forever, and Justin Herbert, because they were all drafted the same year. I think you try to pay him the exact same thing you paid Trevor Lawrence if I'm the Dolphins. The only other one, I will recuse myself because I am biased because I have loved the Green Bay Packers since I was a small child. I think Jordan Love is worth it. Do you? Jordan Love is going to get paid probably in the vein of Jalen Hurts, Kyler Murray, Jared Goff. He's going to get money in that world. Do you think that's worth it?
Yeah. I mean, I think maybe you give it to him after the end of this season.
Instead of doing it now.
You just haven't seen that much.
Yeah.
There's not that much on paper for you. I really got this stuck in my head the other day. I was listening to DC Sports Radio about the contract that Strasburg had and whatever. And you're paying quarterbacks for a little bit of what they've done and what you want them to do.
Mm-hmm.
He hasn't shown me what he's done yet, really.
Just not enough.
Yeah, because he
catalog. I get it.
Yeah,
I get it. I think it is worth it. I went back and I watched a bunch of tape the last couple of days when I had some time of some of the early season stuff when the Packers weren't as good. And I thought, holy cow, he was not getting any help. Some of these throws are great, but I understand that viewpoint. Let's get to a timeout. We'll talk some Chiefs football with Matt Derrick coming up later on this hour, just about 10 minutes from now. First, though, we have to get to a commercial break. We'll come on back. We'll play this week's round of Change My Mind here on 580 Sports Talk. Back at the Kansas Drive to Zero studio, this is 580 Sports Talk. Brendan and Spencer here with you in studio. Trenton on the other side of the glass. A quick comment on our last topic here from Barbara on YouTube. I think they're expecting all these quarterbacks to turn into Mahomes overnight. Patrick Mahomes did break the scale. And like Mahomes' deal is a bargain. I think it works both ways, though. It is the team saying, we have a guy who's as good as Mahomes, which you don't because Mahomes is the best quarterback in the league. But it's also the fans on the other side who don't understand that, like, you still have to pay the guy even though he's not as good as Patrick Mahomes because you still need to have a great quarterback. And there are other great quarterbacks. He's just the greatest among them. All right, time for a quick change my mind before we get to Matt Derrick and our Chiefs insider. Trenton Craxner, you've got to change my mind for us today.
Yeah, I was just looking at it because I was thinking about it today. Royals, let's say hypothetically, Royals get to the wild card.
Mm-hmm.
You're throwing Reagans and Lugo, but changed my mind. Alec Marsh should start game 3, and here's why. First game of the year against Baltimore, in a 4-1 win, he went 7 innings, gave up 2 hits, and then they played Baltimore again. He went 5 2/3, gave up 3 hits, no runs. Yesterday, he had a no-hitter going into the 7th against the best team in baseball. He gave up just 1 hit over 7 innings. Looking at his numbers, I mean, he's had a couple bad starts, but he seems to be a big game player, and especially a quote that I retweeted. I'll find it real quick that he said after the game yesterday.
I think we discussed that. I think I said that as my final word last night.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
he built for this.
Yeah, said, watching what they did to us the last couple of days, I was kind of sick and tired of it. I don't care who we're playing, who they are. Today, I just want to go out there and lay everything on the line, give it my all. I'm really happy that we came back and got the dub. Change my mind. Alec Marsh should be your game 3 starter in a wild card, do or die situation.
So my stance, I am with you, both you, because Spencer, you did bring that up yesterday. I like the attitude of Alec Marsh. I like it. Big fan. Love that he feels like he is built for those moments. The reason I would disagree, this is under the assumption that Michael Wacha is healthy. I think Alec Marsh is built for it. I know Michael Wacha is built for it because we've seen him do it in the postseason before. Now, if you were to ask me, and we talked about this yesterday too, if you were to ask me, we're shortening this to a 4-man rotation, and I think we've had this discussion actually before, who is starter number 4 if you include Wacha? I'm picking Alec Marsh over Brady Singer. I'm actually fairly confident in that, especially after the way Singer performed last time out. But I think I'd still lean with Wacha just because we know we have seen him do it before. I'm going to lean usually with the vet when the vet can still perform. So I would lean with Wacha, I think.
Yeah, and I was just going to go right there was if Wacha's healthy, I'll take Wacha. But if you don't have Wacha healthy, then I would have him as my starter.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I like Alec Marsh. I do. I like what he's got. I like the stuff he brings to the table. Maybe I feel a little bit different come September. Like if we get through the whole season and we're asking the same question when we're getting ready for the wild card round, if Marsh has been great, maybe I feel a little bit different. But for now, I think I'd go with the vet. That's a good one, Trenton.
But I do have something else to add there.
Yeah.
If it comes to be too much for Seth Lugo in his innings, which was something we discussed yesterday, was how many innings that he's pitched.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you throw Lugo in the bullpen, and he's like your Clayton Kershaw out of the bullpen kind of guy where he can do those things for you when you need them.
It's nice to have options, right?
Yeah, like there's so many options here, but I think maybe if you want to lower Seth Lugo's innings, that's what you do.
That's also a possibility come postseason time. Coming up next, Matt Derrick will join us for our Chiefs Insider on 580 Sports Talk live from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. Let's go to Kansas City, where Matt Derrick of ChiefsDigest.com is joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. It's our Chiefs Insider. We do it every Friday at this time with Matt Derrick. Go find his work at ChiefsDigest.com. Go find him on Twitter as well, at Matt Derrick. What's going on, Matt?
I am just recovering from a full night of ring ceremonies and heat. So that's all that's going on in my world, Brendan.
How are we feeling about the bling this year?
I it's a pretty ring. I mean, I think it looks pretty good. It makes me think Chiefs Kingdom. I love Tom and Jerry. I do think after winning 3 of those that they're having to stretch a little bit to come up with stories behind all the diamonds and rubies and what they all mean and everything. But that's not a big deal. But I think it's pretty cool, and it's definitely huge. I mean, you look at the pictures, and especially with the guys who have one from last year, it's definitely bigger than the one last year. So the Hunt family keeps paying out for the jewelry.
Are they planning to do something to rectify the typo on the inside of the rings?
Not clear. I have not heard about it, but I can say, at least from some people that I have talked to that have rings, that they're like, we couldn't care less. The rest of the ring is fantastic. That little thing doesn't mean anything. And, you know, they just feel like, hey, the Hunt family spent a lot of money on those rings. One little tiny thing slipped by, but it doesn't affect their appreciation for it and what it means to them. So I don't know. I don't know if there's an easy way to fix it or not. If there is, maybe they will, but I don't know what how higher ups plans are, but I think that the people who have the ring, they're fine whether they get fixed or not.
How good was it to see that team all together one more time? Because it's the kind of unspoken end of the season thing that this group, as it stands, will never be together again. It was a one-shot deal. Maybe most of them will be, but it'll never be quite the same. How good was it to see Willie Gay and MVS and Tommy Townsend and all those guys back with the core one more time?
Yeah, it was really cool. I mean, especially to see the camaraderie that they all still have. I mean, you saw the players who haven't or aren't with the team anymore, and there's others too. I mean, guys like Austin Ryder have been around for a while, but aren't on the team right now and are free agents where we're there. All getting together, and I mean, you could see. I mean, they're still friends. They're still in what the NFL calls their brotherhood. I mean, they still have those relationships. So that was really cool. I mean, even getting to talk to MVS and Tommy Townsend and kind of hear about their experiences since leaving, and you know, and MVS was, you know, pretty profound, you know, as far as just talking about, hey, he admitted, hey, there were ups and downs here, but you know, this was special to him, and it's the last opportunity for him to get together and to gather with these people ever again. And it's always fun for me for this night to also see just the rest of the organization, because as Mark Donovan said, I mean, especially the way that the Chiefs, you know, include the entire organization. They had more than 800 people there last night, you know, for this event. They've got more than 300 employees.
Wow.
That are on top of the players and the coaches. They're getting their rings. So, you know, seeing them and seeing them be able to go through such an event like this, I mean, you know, for some of the players, I mean, hey, Travis Kelce's been down a few red carpets, so it's no big deal for him. But, you know, hey, you work in HR, you know, you work in accounting, you work in game ops or something like that. I mean, getting the chance to get all gussied up and take your significant other to an event like that and be with all these other celebrities. I mean, that's what's really cool to see, and to see the fun that everybody in that organization has on that night.
Talking to Matt Derrick, who covers the Kansas City Chiefs for ChiefsDigest.com. He joins us every Friday here on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline for our Chiefs Insider. We're live on 580 Sports Talk from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. Mandatory minicamp this week, Matt, Tuesday through Thursday, to some degree Thursday anyway. What were some of your big takeaways from what we heard from the players and coaches who spoke?
Yeah, I thought one thing in particular was a line, and it's something I'm working on for Chiefs Digest. Will be up here a little bit later. Is about just the chemistry that Patrick is developing with Hollywood Brown. That's going to be important. I mean, there's no doubt. You talk, if we're talking about the deep passing game becoming an effective part of this Chiefs offense again, those two are going to be at the forefront of it. And you know, we'll see if Xavier Woods becomes part of that too when he gets on the field, and how much of a role that he is going to play. But you know, on the last day of full team period, there was a play Defense was throwing a blitz at Mahomes. Hollywood is out to his left on the outside, and he reads it perfectly. Runs just towards the green grass, and he sees where the safety's going. Gets away from the safety and just runs to the open. Mahomes knew where that was going to be. He obviously had in mind where he wanted to throw the ball. Well, since the blitz was coming, just absolutely heaves it downfield, and Hollywood runs to get it. And I'd asked Mahomes about that particular play, and he said they had an earlier one during OTAs. It was the exact same situation, a very similar blitz. And Hollywood read it differently than he did, so they didn't connect on it because Hollywood had to went a different direction. But the more they get to see these plays, and the more they get this experience on the field, and that was that example. I mean, they didn't have to communicate. They just have Mahomes gives him a look. Hollywood sees the same thing, and he's like, "Oh, wait a minute! I've seen this blitz before. I know what Mahomes is going to do now." Runs to that spot. There was the ball, and it's a touchdown. That's the kind of chemistry that you're working on this time of year. And the fact that they're getting there already and there's learning those kind of things, that to me was one of the better signs for this Chiefs offense.
The Hollywood Brown fit in this offense, I think most fans, and not just Chiefs fans, but fans in general, they think, oh man, this guy's crazy fast. Take the top off the defense. He's a burner. It's going to be 9 routes, go routes all day long. Am I crazy to think that Hollywood Brown is going to be better suited running more intermediate stuff for this offense than being the true, quote unquote, take the top off the defense guy?
Oh, you're not. I don't think you're wrong at all. I mean, I think he is absolutely going to be. I mean, I don't think I can pigeonhole him into a direct comparison of a receiver that the Chiefs have had in this offense before, unless maybe it is. I mean, Tyreek, and I don't want to make that comparison for him and put that kind of pressure on him because Tyreek was so good. And there's probably a few things that Hollywood can do that Tyreek couldn't, and vice versa. But no, I mean, Hollywood Brown's a complete receiver. I don't think there's any doubt about that. He can run just about any route. He can run out. He can run, ends. I mean, he can run dig. He can run deep, just 9 routes. There's just nothing I don't think that he can't do on a field. And he's also got the ability to line up anywhere. He doesn't need to be pigeonholed into one receiver position. He can tackle them all. So, yeah, I mean, I think that the Chiefs are, for last year, they had a lot of guys who were pigeonholed into one spot. That there was really only one route that they could, one position that maybe they were really comfortable. I think they're getting to a point now where they've got some guys, and I think Rashee Rice is fitting into that too. We'll see how Xavier Worthy fits in, but he's another one of those guys because he's played multiple positions in his career. I think they're getting back to having some interchangeable parts, and when you have that ability, especially like Hollywood, where you can line up anywhere and create mismatches on the defense and make them worried. Okay, hey, wait a minute, where's Hollywood lined up? Wait a minute, where's Rashee? And then it's, oh yeah, we got to worry about Kelsey too. I think that this has the potential, if these players can stay on the field and stay healthy, to really take this offense back a few years.
We're joined by Matt Derrick of Chiefs Digest on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. And Matt, where are things with the left tackle battle between Suamataia and Wanye Morris after off-season activities?
Yeah, I think it certainly is looking more and more clear that that's where the options are, at least as far as this team goes. I think it would be fair to say that at least they're sharing the position, although I think that there's probably just a slim majority of the reps are going to Suamataia at this time. So I think you'd have to say he's in the lead for the job, and Wanye's in second. We've also seen Wanye, play some reps at guard as well. So I think the Chiefs are certainly considering their options, and that even goes down the line. I mean, there's a lot of guys who during OTAs were lining up at different positions. I think they're testing combinations and seeing, which line performs best and what players perform best at which positions. So I think there's still a lot to figure out, especially with the younger players. But I think that we're probably going to have to wait until the pads come on, which is going to be probably, I think, around July 26th. That's going to probably be the first padded practices. And that's when we're going to find out for sure, if either one of these guys are ready to be a left tackle. And if one of them has some really good practices, those maybe late July practices, then maybe the Chiefs don't do anything. They're just like, okay, we'll ride with one of these guys. And I do think that Kingsley's in the lead right now. But that's going to be the key, because I think they get to August 1st, and if the Chiefs still have some question marks, Jonathan Smith's still on the market, I think that's when he gets a phone call. If not him, then somebody else. But that's, I think, the 5 days to circle is really those last few days of July when the padded practices hit, and just how well either or both of those guys look.
Staying on the offensive line, Joe Thuney's still recovering from injury. What's his prognosis for being back in time for training camp?
Yeah, we did get to see Joe last night at the ceremony, and he, in typical Joe Thuney fashion, last year he jumped out of his pickup truck and snuck in the Union Station to avoid the red carpet. Last night that wasn't as easy of an option, but he did go behind the red carpet, so and just popped out the other side. So that was classic Joe Thuney. But yeah, I mean, it's still going to be the beginning of training camp that they're going to circle for him. Andy Reid talked a little bit about him yesterday, and said basically he's on target with their projections. With his recovery all along, it was expected to be the beginning of training camp would be when he would be ready. It might be touch and go whether he's truly ready on day one. If there's a setback, obviously that could happen too. It would not stun me if they started him on the PUP list just to give him some time to kind of acclimate and get his feet wet, since he had no off-season program. He's just been doing rehab. Wouldn't surprise me if they just gave him a few days. But if not, if he doesn't start the camp on the PUP list, then I'm going to be assuming he's ready to go. And even if he did start on the PUP list, I think they wouldn't be concerned with maybe giving him a week just to rest up before he gets going.
And where is Jared Wiley in his development, the fourth rounder? Do you think he'll be a guy that can get on the field a lot in two tight end sets, or when Travis Kelce's or just when Travis Kelce's not on the field? Or is he a guy, again, that can be, can make a big impact in his first year?
And I hate to have to use when the pads come on phrase, but that's the last test that Jared Wiley needs to pass for me. From what we've seen during OTAs, this guy just has an incredible knack to the football. Great hands, great body control, just an innate ability to find open places in the zone, and especially in the red zone. I mean, he had a couple of catches and touchdown catches, like 3-yard catches on the Wednesday that were really impressive, because he was just finding the blank spot in the field, and Mahomes is finding him. He also has a unique ability in that he's 6'6". Think about the fact Travis is 6'5". Based on their combine and pro day numbers, Wiley had a 2-inch better vertical leap than Kelce. I think Kelce's was 35 and Wiley's was 37. We all know Kelce doesn't have a 35-inch vertical leap anymore. I mean, the legs don't quite have that. So you're talking about, as far as being able to go up and get a football, Jared Wiley might have like a 6-inch advantage on Travis Kelce. That's an added bonus if you're a quarterback and you just want to throw a football up into the end zone and knowing that your guy is the only guy who can get it, because there's no cornerback or safety that's going to be able to match that kind of verticality with Wiley. And like I said, he's also got the ability to just sit in a spot that you don't even have to throw it up. You just find his chest and throw the ball there. If he's able to continue the progress that he has shown so far, when the pads come on and there's guys hitting him and he can, hold on to the ball through contact, this guy's going to get a lot of playing time and he's going to put up some numbers. I mean, it's tough. I mean, because there's other tight ends involved in it, and don't get me wrong. I'm not saying, hey, Jared Wiley's going to have a 1,000-yard season, but boy, if he had 500 yards and 8 touchdowns, based on what I've seen so far, I wouldn't be surprised at all.
Finishing things up with Matt Derrick of ChiefsDigest.com here on 580 Sports Talk on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. Matt, if you had to guess right now, which cornerback is higher on the depth chart, Joshua Williams or Jalen Watson?
Based on what we've seen so far, I would say Joshua Williams. And that's mostly because, well, I wouldn't say mostly. That's partly due to Jalen Watson being a little bit dinged up and hasn't been a full participant over the last week or so of OTA practices. But I think it's also a continuation of last year. That Jalen, as Dave Merritt kind of talked about it, he plateaued a little bit from year 1 to year 2, maybe didn't make the same leap that Williams did. And that was the long-term viewpoint of the organization anyway, was that, Watson had maybe a higher floor. Williams had the higher ceiling just because of he's a little bit bigger player and just he has a little bit more of an athletic skill set, played at a smaller college. So, once the experience got in, that he had a higher ceiling. So I would say Josh Williams for now. The real question mark to me is going to be that when Najee Johnson, feels like he's back to at least as close to 100% as he's going to be this year, where does he fit in the depth chart? Because right now, I mean, he started up the depth chart down at the bottom because he wasn't on it at all. He was at the first of OTAs. He was just going through positional drills, wasn't even in on 11 on 11, 7 on 7, anything like that. He is now, and I mean, I would say he's in the top 4 as far as rotation goes right now. And we all know last year before the injury, he was ready to be a starter. So is he going to be able to play him back into himself in that position? That's something to watch during training camp.
Last one for you, Matt. We've only got about 30 seconds here. All sorts of quarterbacks in the last 2 years have gotten paid, and a few more are going to get paid likely before this offseason ends. What year does Mahomes get his new deal?
I'm going to say probably at least another year, but I'm going to say 2 years. I think it'll probably be 26 when they touch it again. I mean, it's the kind of deal that can be reworked at any time, but I think that will probably be about the right time. It's no sweat for Mahomes. He's okay with it regardless, but I think the Chiefs, it's built to just get into it every year, couple years or so, and they touched it a little bit last year. So I'll say maybe 25, but definitely 26.
Matt, as always, we appreciate the time. We'll talk to you soon.
Sounds great. Take care, everybody.
That is the great Matt Derrick of ChiefsDigest.com. 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talks coming up next from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. Hey now, it's the 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk. We're halfway home on a feel-good Friday. Brendan Dworzinski, Spencer Dupuis, as well as Trenton Kraxner here with you live from the Kansas Drive to Zero studios. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today, whether you're listening on 580 AM, 104.9 FM, online at 580WIBW.com, or on YouTube, where our channel is called 580 Sports Talk. Again, once we get to 580 subscribers, we are going to give away a pair of Diamond Club seats to a Royals home game. We need 11 more. We're at 569. We need to get to 580, just like 580 Sports Talk and 580 AM. 580 subscribers on YouTube. We will do a giveaway on the air for a pair of Royals Diamond Club tickets. We want to give those away. We need you to go subscribe to us on YouTube first. Again, 580 Sports Talk on YouTube is where you can find us. Here in this 4 o'clock hour of the show today, we'll talk some Royals trade targets here in just a moment and players on the roster you could trade. Additionally, we've got our final What Is Wrong With You of the week, and Max Rieper of Royals Review is going to join us at the bottom of this hour to talk all things Royals baseball. Your texts are welcome. The Top City Metal Supply text line number is 785-272-9429. And, of course, you can find us on YouTube, 580 Sports Talk on YouTube as well. Had a text in from the 785 on the Top City Metal Supply text line when we were talking about quarterbacks last hour. Game managers like Goff and Prescott get the quarterback market all riled up, and they cause way too much chaos for other teams. That's essentially the issue you run through, though, is do you pay the guy who you know is good to very good, but not great? Or do you say, we are going to throw away a season and then tank and try to get a quarterback in the draft?
That's your option.
Honestly, and I know a lot of folks don't agree with me, honestly, the smart approach is probably to pay the guy.
Yeah, because you're just restarting the cycle.
And it's going to take you 2 years. Like if you're Dallas, for example, your roster is too good. And, well, you're also run by Jerry Jones, which is its whole other, set of variables. But you are too good to bottom out this year. Like, you will not be bad enough this year. Well, actually, they still have Dak Prescott. So what would be another example of a team here? All right, so if you waited until next year, right?
Yeah.
You have Dak play out the string, then you let him hit free agency. Your roster is still too good. You will not go 2-15, 3-14. You're not going to get that top pick and your pick of the litter for who your quarterback is going to be. So you would essentially have to burn 2 years doing that. Or even if you're you're going to be terrible if you let your quarterback go, you still have to burn through that year, and you're throwing away that rookie quarterback's first year when in all likelihood, you're still probably not going to be all that good. That's a bare minimum of committing to 2 years when you are going to suck, and NFL teams just aren't willing to do that.
And then sometimes you try to get the retread guy that didn't get that deal that maybe didn't deserve that deal to be your starting quarterback, and that doesn't work out. And like, I know this quarterback rotation all too well. I know how you draft a guy in the first round, he's supposed to be the best of the best, doesn't turn out to be the best of the best, whether that's an injury or that's just not working out because maybe it wasn't a first round talent all in all. And then you have to go through the rabbit hole again. And then you decide, you're like, well, let's just go through the veteran market. And then a guy gets hurt. And then another guy gets hurt.
Teams are so rarely willing to just commit to sucking. They're not willing to say, we're going to tank for the best quarterback possible, number one overall, and we're going to play the worst quarterback we can find.
Unless you're the Dolphins that tanked for Tua.
Yeah, the Dolphins tanked. So that would have been, what year was that? Is that the 2020 draft? Yes, it was the 2020.
So, yeah.
I misspoke earlier. Tua and Herbert were in the Burrow class. They were a year before Trevor Lawrence. I misspoke earlier, but they'll always be tied to Joe Burrow. Yeah. So the Dolphins in 2019, the team that tanked for Tua, their roster included, well, they wanted to tank for Tua, and they said, oh, well, Josh Rosen and Ryan Fitzpatrick. Fitz is too good for that. They got a quarterback who is too good. That's why they ended up with the 5th pick and they had a crappy roster otherwise, instead of being bad enough like the Bengals to get the first pick. You've got to commit to being garbage. You need the first time this ever came up, right? It was suck for luck. It was the 2012 Colts.
2011.
Was it 2011? I'm getting all my years
Yeah,
one
because
off.
it was a 2012 draft.
You're right. And because RG3 then went second, and Ryan Tannehill went eighth, and then Russ went in the third round. It was suck for luck. You know who their quarterback was for the majority of that season?
Matt Moore.
Curtis Painter.
Oh, yeah.
Curtis Painter.
Oh, you're talking about, yeah, I thought we were talking about the Dolphins.
No, I'm sorry. When they did the suck for luck.
Yes, suck for luck.
They started Curtis Painter for most of that season when Peyton Manning was hurt.
That was atrocious.
God bless Curtis Painter for getting NFL paychecks. That dude is one of the worst quarterbacks to ever suit up in the NFL. Absolutely horrible. They committed. They knew Andrew Luck is out there. And shoot, even if Andrew Luck has, even if we're the second worst team in the league, we're going to end up with RG3. We're going to commit to making sure we get one of those quarterbacks. And they spent a whole year with Curtis Painter as their quarterback. Teams aren't willing to do that. You can't say we're going to go with Ryan Fitzpatrick. Nah, man, Fitzy's too good. You ended up with the fifth pick. Now, they still got the guy they wanted. Everyone thought they were going to be the worst team and get Tua. They ended up being the fifth worst team and still got Tua. That's beside the point, though. You've got to commit to that. These teams with the quarterbacks right now, Miami, right now, if you don't want to pay Tua Tagovailoa, your roster's too good. You're going to end up spending 3 years being 6-11 and not getting the top pick that you want. When the Lions chose to pay Jared Goff, that's a 3-year expenditure. Essentially, if you say we're not going to pay Goff, we're going to let him walk in free agency. Because you've got Goff on a lame duck year, then a year of you, probably 2 years of your roster being too good, and your coach not being a guy who's willing to tank to end up getting the guy. By the time you're bad enough to go get that quarterback, you spent 3 years as a nobody, as a complete afterthought. It's something that teams just are not intentionally willing to do. So you end up in a situation where you have to pay those guys because it's either 3 years of we're bad, but not bad enough to reset, or, well, shoot, I mean, at least we're going to win 10 or 11 games and we'll see what happens. And as a fan, admittedly, and I know fewer and fewer fans agree with this over time, you might agree with this because your team has not been good for a while. Like, I would rather just be good and see what happens than, well, we suck, but we don't suck that bad. Let's just tank the whole thing. I would rather have a Goff or a Prescott in that.
90% of the time, it's more than one cycle of that, too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because you have to hit.
Yeah.
And if you don't hit, if you land, here's a great modern example. He just got traded this offseason. Sometimes you land Zach Wilson. Now, the Jets went out and they got Aaron Rodgers. They missed the postseason because they had to start Zach Wilson for a whole year, and he stinks. And if Rodgers, 40 years old off a torn Achilles, doesn't get them to the playoffs, what are they going to do? Start all over again.
Have to start all over, yeah.
With a brand new head coach.
I was about to say, probably with a new head coach after everything that's happened.
And probably a new front office as well. Because Joe Douglas ain't going to survive it if they gave up all that for Aaron Rodgers and they can't make it to the playoffs in 2 years with him. Let's get over to some Royals baseball, shall we? Royals,
a little off topic there.
Royals will be in action coming up tonight, starting a series with the Los Angeles Dodgers. We'll preview the series a little bit more coming up later on in the show today. Later on in the 5 o'clock hour. It's Cole Reagan's day, by the way. Cole Reagan's versus Gavin Stone. Tomorrow, Seth Lugo versus Yoshinobu Yamamoto. And then Brady Singer versus Tyler Glasnow coming up on Sunday. The Royals, I think, will be active at the trade deadline. They have, as we have been over, a very beatable schedule between now and the deadline, especially once you're done with this Dodgers series. You've got one team that currently is above 500. The Cardinals with a win today, they got to 500, and you only play 2 games against them. You've got a lot of winnable games the rest of the way for the Kansas City Royals. I think they will be a player buying at the trade deadline this year. So let's get to who are some of the players who you think will be available. Jim Bowden of The Athletic put out a piece the other day with who are some guys who various potential buyers could be targeting come the trade deadline this year. And that included a group for the Kansas City Royals. Before we get to his, though, I want to ask you guys, Trenton, because you've got the emotional connection to this Royals team. Spencer, you and I cover this team. What are some names that stand out to you as guys who you say that's someone that the Royals either realistically could get, probably for an affordable price that would help this team, or maybe even a big swing? There's a couple that stand out here. I don't have the name of a reliever for you off the top of my head. I know there are guys out there. Everyone's going to say, well, what about Mason Miller? The A's are terrible. What would it take to get Mason Miller?
A lot.
A lot. It would take a ton to get Mason Miller. Would I love it if they could get him? Yes, absolutely. Would be thrilled if they could get him. I don't think they will. No. So just give me someone steady in the bullpen, a 7th or 8th inning guy, take some pressure off of MacArthur. I like John Schreiber still. You don't want him going back-to-back days, though, like we saw yesterday. Find me someone steady. The names that come to my mind are more corner outfielders. 2 pop up immediately. One has been tied to the Royals a bunch. It's Luis Robert. You're not getting Luis Robert. Even the White Sox, who are dumb and probably have a relief pitcher. We were talking about this off the air during the top of the hour. Michael Kopech, you might be able to go get. The White Sox are dumb. They're not that dumb that they'll give up Luis Robert for nothing. The Royals do not have a farm system that is talented enough or deep enough or major league ready enough to be able to make a move for Luis Robert right now. That's just not something that's going to end up happening. One name that I think would be interesting, he's having a down year, so you're probably going to pay a cheaper price because he is, let's be frank, he hasn't had a down year, he's had a bad year. Randy Arozarena. Randy Arozarena has had a very nice career for the Tampa Bay Rays. He has stunk this year. He's batting 174 entering today. Has not had a very good season. So you're buying low. And you might tell me, well, why would I buy low on a guy when I already have MJ? Why would I buy low on Randy Arozarena, who's betting 174, when we've already got MJ Melendez stinking up the joint in left field this year? And I would tell you, go look at their holistic bodies of work. Go look at what Randy Arozarena has done in his career versus what MJ Melendez has done in his albeit brief career. Randy Arozarena, prior to this season, he has been in the majors since, well, he came up full-time in 2020. He was red hot in the postseason that year. He was great going into the World Series. He played 19 games with the Cardinals in 2019, goes to the Rays, only played 23 regular season games, had an OPS plus of 182, and then was great in the playoffs that year. 2021, OPS plus 129. It's trickled down over time. 123 in 2022, 120 last year. He was an all-star last year. He was rookie of the year in 2021. This year, he's been bad. OPS plus is just at 71. He's OPSing 590 overall. Maybe he's the kind of guy who you think we can buy low on him, give up a mid-level or 2 mid-level prospects. Guys, we don't know if they'll contribute for us, and we'll be able to add him and see if he can become anything. At the very least, if you get him for cheap, it's a flyer. It's a flyer on a guy who has had plenty of success, who's 29 years old. If it works out, you've got another year of team control on him. That might not be the biggest splash. I would love to go after a guy like Taylor Ward, who's performing at a higher level this year, but I think that's a buy low kind of guy. Taylor Ward, also a name we talked about earlier on in the season, the Los Angeles Angels outfielder, who I think could make a modicum of sense. Who are some other guys you would have on your radar as a target the Royals should go after next month?
Kyle Finnegan.
Kyle Finnegan
of the Nationals. We actually discussed this when you were gone last week and Dan was still here. We played a game of no name, but their resume.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got another year of team control next year. And he is put on a team that could be selling to get something.
I think that makes sense.
And he's a guy, he's a back end of the bullpen. He could be your setup man, or he could be your closer. He could be either or.
I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Certainly. Trenton, what about you? Who's a guy or who are a couple of guys who you think could be realistic trade deadline targets to go get?
Shohei Ohtani for Daniel Lynch the fourth straight up. No. I think Randy Arozarena is an interesting case because the Rays are struggling this year.
Mediocre.
But they're still right around 500 and the wild card race. I don't know if that's something you give up. I've seen Brent Rooker. Remember Brett Rooker?
Former Royal.
Who got infamously cut instead of Hunter Dozier
He was an all-star last year.
Yes, and he hit like 35 home runs. The Royals decided to keep Hunter Dozier over Brent Rooker. It was between the two, and you said no. Let's go get Hunter Renfroe or Hunter Dozier, who sucked and got cut from the Angels AAA team this year because he was so bad.
Real quick, when I talk about how much I despise what Dayton Moore did to the Royals franchise, I really cannot emphasize enough how much I despise what Dayton Moore did to the franchise. He built the World Series winners. Yes, he also is pretty much single-handedly responsible for digging them into this past 6-year hole. But continue.
Yeah, Starling Marte, maybe for the Mets.
They're not going anywhere.
Yeah, they fell apart. They were around 500 after the first month. They've completely fell off a cliff. I think Marte's another veteran bat that you could go play in the corner outfields. That's a good contact guy with some speed.
Mm-hmm.
There was a real clip of him really dogging after a fly ball. I think it was against the Phillies in that London series. They probably should have caught. It had like a 95% catch probability, and he was kind of lumbering over there. But maybe if he gets on a team that's contending, I really liked him when he was on the Pirates. I always thought he was a talented guy.
Mm-hmm.
I think too are you willing to take on his whatever money's left on his contract?
Yeah, how much are you going to acquire if you move for a guy like that?
Because he had a decent sized contract.
The Royals are always going to have to consider that. They're not a team like the Dodgers or the Yankees where you can just say, yeah, whatever, we'll pay it. So that is something you have to consider too. So these are all worthwhile names, and hopefully you can land a guy or two from this group and you improve the team come trade deadline time. As we stand right now, who are the guys you can give up? Like, who are the pieces that you are willing to say, I will move this guy? We will move on from him. We can live with that if we think we are adding a piece or pieces that are going to help us make it to the playoffs and be a contender right now. Who are those dudes? There's a couple that come to mind right away for me. If you are taking a flyer on a guy, if you are going to take, especially if you're able to add another bat, if you're able to add an arm and a bat this year at the deadline, are you willing to trade a guy who has a ton of team control left in MJ Melendez and say he's got all the tools, he has not figured it out? I don't know if it's between the ears. I don't know if he's just an athlete, not a ball player. What? Are you willing to move that guy? I'll tell you right now, yes.
Yeah.
Well, what's the deal? Move him. That's fine with me. Are you willing to move Nick Lofton? I like Nick Lofton. I like his game. He's kind of an old school baseball player. He can play multiple spots. He's got a good glove in the field, not much power, but he can hit the ball decently well. Good contact guy. Are you willing to use him as a piece to go get probably a reliever? That's probably a guy you give up to go get a relief pitcher right now. Would you be willing to do that? Again, my answer is I like the guy, but my answer is probably yes if you think that reliever is going to help you get to and win games in the postseason.
I'm not getting rid of Nick Lofton because Garrett Hampson and Adam Frazier are gone after this year. I think Nick Lofton he's a good security blanket for Michael Massey because who knows how Michael Massey's back injury will be.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing with Jalen Daniels. Back injuries are very tricky. You never know when it could flare up again. I think you keep Lofton because Hampson and Frazier are probably not going to be back on the team next year. I think they're both on 1-year deals.
Would you use those guys as sweeteners?
I think you could.
I mean, Hampson's hit pretty well this year, all things considered.
I think you hoped for Frazier at the beginning of this year that he was a guy that could come in and be a huge asset off the bench, and that just hasn't happened. And he could be trade bait.
And frankly, what you're getting or hope to get out of Nick Lofton may just replace what you thought originally you were going to get out of Adam Frazier.
Yeah.
So that's a certain possibility as well. Mentioned it a moment ago, Jim Bowden at The Athletic, what he put as his Royals options: position targets, back end of the bullpen, corner, outfield, bat. Yeah, we already know that. Bullpen options. He had Kyle Finnegan as well, Spencer. Tanner Scott, Ryan Walker, Michael Kopech from the White Sox, who we mentioned, Garrett Clevenger, Yimi Garcia, Derek Law, all names that if you're just Joe Baseball fan, you might not know, but those are guys who have been productive this year. Corner outfield options. Luis Robert Jr. is not going to happen. Royals don't have the assets to get him. That's not going to happen. Brent Rooker. There you go. Would be great to bring Brent Rooker back. Gavin Sheets of the White Sox. That doesn't do anything for me. Taylor Ward of the Angels. We talked about him earlier in the year. I think that would be a decent option. Eddie Rosario. His name comes up in trade talks, I swear, every single year at the deadline. Joe Adele.
I think that's why the Nats picked him up.
Probably so. Joe Adele, who was at one point in time a major prospect for the Angels. Didn't quite work out, has started to figure it out at the plate this year. That's an interesting one. The Angels aren't going anywhere. And then Heston Kierstad of the Orioles, who is mashing at AAA right now, didn't really do much in a brief stint in the majors so far this year. Highly touted prospect, though. And Spencer, you know this pretty well. The Orioles have tons of dudes who they need to make space for.
Yeah, so they've obviously stockpiled. They probably have the best farm system in Major League Baseball as we speak right now, or if not one of the best. And they've just got a ton of guys that are just there and that might need trading in order to use them correctly instead of waste them down in the minor leagues.
I want to see real quick who is ranked as having the best, at least preseason. MLB.com had the Orioles number 1. I would imagine they're still up there near the very top as well. So there are options out there.
Yeah.
But you've got to be willing to move decent pieces you have, and also understand that you might not have a whole lot to give up. So you've got to be realistic with your asks. One comment here on the Top City Metal Supply text line from the 785. If you're buying a bat, you have to go after a corner stick, not a power hitter. You play 81 a season at the K. Yeah, I would love to get Luis Robert because I think his game would play at the K no matter what. You just can't afford a guy like that. So you've got to be realistic with the kind of bat you're looking to go after. That's why a couple seasons ago, when I thought the Royals weren't going to be miserable, and they were, I wanted Michael Kadire so badly, then he took a year off. But that's the kind of bat you have to look at. We have to get to a commercial break. On the other side of this timeout, though, we'll find our weekly winner in What Is Wrong With You. Then a little bit later on, we'll talk to Max Rieper of Royals Review. That's coming up on 580 Sports Talk live from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. Let's find a winner for this week in What Is Wrong With You on 580 Sports Talk, live from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. Our current winner, we found him yesterday. We called him Instant Karma. This story is making the rounds nationally now, by the way. Heard this on a national rock radio morning show today. A guy was so mad at the cost of coffee. A repeat offender was so mad about the cost of coffee at a Seattle coffee shop that he threw his coffee back at the drive-thru window. But the barista at the window was prepared, and she responded by swinging a hammer at the dude's car. He was eventually escorted away by police, was not arrested. Spencer, why don't you go first to round out the week of What Is Wrong With You?
All right, let's go back to the great state of Florida. A St. Petersburg police employee is facing charges for her involvement in a crime. According to officials, Robin Conyers, 59, who worked as a civilian employee with the department, has accessed confidential databases to give information to a man who used that to commit a crime.
Uh-oh.
Police said Conyers gave a man, DeLon Walton, information about a deceased owner of a vehicle. Walton used that information to fraudulently transfer the title of the car to his company. Walton was charged in May on several charges, officials said. It was Conyers' supervisor who noticed the non-work related entirely during, I guess she was going through a routine and she noticed that it was non-work related for their
Yeah, she was going through an audit. Yeah.
Yes. Then they turned their discovery over to the Office of the Professional Standards for investigation. In addition to violating department policies, she also committed a crime. She was charged with misuse of confidential information, offenses against computer users, and the unlawful use of two-way communication device. She was booked into Pinellas County Jail on Thursday and placed on admin leave without pay.
I would hope.
Pending the outcome of the charges, this is an ongoing investigation.
That's terrible. That's brutal. My story will also take us to Florida, the town of Bushnell, where a Florida woman has found herself behind bars after she was caught allegedly filling her backpack with bags of frozen shrimp at a Walmart. 54-year-old Patricia Stutes was arrested and charged with 2 counts of larceny and petty theft after the incident that unfolded at the Bushnell Walmart on Sunday. A loss prevention officer told deputies that Stutes grabbed several bags of frozen shrimp and frozen tilapia and put them in her shopping cart. Then she put the bags in her backpack and left the store without paying. The Walmart employee then asked Stutes for a receipt, but she provided a receipt from last week and not on Sunday. Nearly $430 worth of merchandise was allegedly stolen. That's a lot of fish. $430 worth. What exactly was stolen in addition to the bags of frozen shrimp, are unclear at this time since they are redacted in the report, but the affidavit does mention an air conditioning blower and a large power tool also being in her shopping cart. Deputies also learned of a previous theft conviction for Stutes. She was arrested on a Hernando County warrant for felony retail theft from May, and she is on pretrial release for that case. Because of that, she is in custody without bond. So she was out on a previous theft charge and then decided to steal again. That is story number 2. Story number 1 is the woman who gave confidential information for a man to help him commit a crime. Spencer, what is your pick to win today?
The shrimp lady.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the shrimp lady, too. It's one of the cardinal sins of What Is Wrong With You. Don't commit a crime while in the process of committing another crime. I'm going to go with that one, too. Does that beat the instant karma from yesterday, though?
I don't think so.
Nah, man. Our YouTube comment was right. You must have known what the price was. So you have no right to get mad at the people working at the counter about how pricey your coffee is, let alone get the opportunity to throw your coffee back at them. And it's the classic FAFO, mess around and find out. Throw your coffee, get hit with a hammer. That is still our winner in What Is Wrong With You. It wins the week, in fact, here in What Is Wrong With You on 580 Sports Talk. When we come back, Max Rieper of Royals Review will join us here live from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. 580 Sports Talk rolls on here on a Feel Good Friday afternoon. Brendan, Spencer, and Trenton with you. We are live from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. And it's time to talk a little more Royals baseball as we bring in our good pal Max Rieper, the editor-in-chief of Royals Review. Go ahead to Royals Review for all sorts, RoyalsReview.com, I should say, for all sorts of great coverage of the boys in blue. 70 games in, Max. How are we feeling about the playoff odds at this time of year for this Royals team?
Well, I think the Yankees series probably gave us a little dose of reality, just of how challenging, these games against top contenders is going to be. But hey, there's a long way to go between now and October, and any struggles you have now could be long forgotten by the time the season's over. And look, they kind of held their own at the end there, a nice comeback win on Thursday. So I think if they kind of hold their own this week against the Yankees and Dodgers, you have to feel pretty good about their chances, because the next 7 weeks is I think 49 of their next 53 games are against teams that currently have a losing record. Now, a lot of those teams are kind of around 500, so that could change. But it's a stretch where you can at least start to build up some wins and catch up some ground on Cleveland, who we'll have here in a couple of weeks. So just hold serve against the Dodgers, and then then you have a chance. The next month will really show a lot about what these Royals are made of.
What does holding serve against the Dodgers look like to you? Is that get at least one of them? Do you feel like they've got to win 2 on the road at Chavez Ravine? What would you say that looks like this weekend?
I say don't give up 8 runs in the first inning, maybe. That's a place to start. I mean, it's kind of more of like you don't want to get blown out and just show you're totally outclassed by another team. That's kind of what the first couple of Yankees games look like. So that's why it's so important, I think, to get that win on Thursday, to kind of give them a chance that, look, we can overcome adversity. We can show that we can hang with these teams, and we can take advantage of mistakes. So I don't think they necessarily even have to win a series in Los Angeles. Tough place to play. When we talk about playing these top teams and the Royals don't have a winning record against some of these good teams, well, no one has a winning record. I mean, these teams are good for a reason. They're beating everyone. They're beating the Braves. They're beating all these other contenders who have really good teams as well. So the Dodgers, they have a great team. And if you go into Los Angeles and take 1 out of 3 and are pretty competitive in maybe one of the other games, I think you'd probably take that at this point. I don't want to, lay expectations too low, but this is a really good Los Angeles team that has a $250 million payroll and is kind of has some of the biggest stars in the game. I don't feel like you have to go out there and win the series to prove yourself. So hopefully that Yankee series, the last game of the Yankee series, gave them a little momentum, gave them a little confidence in themselves. I think they played really well overall in that game, and maybe that can carry over to the West Coast here a little bit.
Max Rieper is our guest, the editor-in-chief of RoyalsReview.com, part of the SB Nation Sports Blog Network, joining us here on 580 Sports Talk on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. The starting pitching, the state of starting pitching for this team, Max. Cole Reagan's obviously a stud. Seth Lugo has been remarkable so far this year. Hopefully Michael Wacha's back soon. Maybe Chris Bubich is back soon. But the guy I've got the biggest questions about, and I should also mention Alec Marsh, who's coming off an unbelievable start yesterday. The guy I have the most concerns about, though, is Brady Singer. And my concern is the fact that he is the same guy he has always been. The good is legitimately good. Middle of the rotation, reliable, good stuff. We have seen that over the course of his career. But then he gets in these spots where he regresses to only using 2 pitches, and they're just not consistent enough. And you think, makes me think anyway, this is a bullpen guy. Like, this isn't a guy that I can rely on in the starting lineup. And a 2-pitch arsenal, that screams bullpen to me more than it screams starter. Where are you with Brady Singer at this juncture of the season and at this juncture of his career?
Yeah, I feel like he's been a little bit of a lightning rod with the fan base for the reasons you lay out. And certainly it's frustrating at times when he's just kind of stubbornly not throwing a third pitch, not throwing a 4-seamer up in the zone, when all his pitches are down in the zone, sinker, slider, and the location. And certainly we see the results. Like it's great at times. There's times where he looks masterful. He gets quick innings. He's getting the ground balls. And then there's games where he just doesn't seem to have it, and he's not locating well at all, and he's getting hit around a little bit. So I understand the frustration, but I'm at the point now. I think maybe we should just accept him for what he is, and maybe he's not a frontline starter he's not going to live up to maybe a first-round potential from the draft. But if he's a solid number 3 or number 4, we have other guys to be that ace. We don't need him to be the ace of this rotation anymore. We've got Cole Reagans, we've got Seth Lugo. If he's a solid number 4, maybe even number 5, like you say, Alec Marsh has kind of surpassed him right now. That's a terrific spot to be in. So I think it's okay. If he's every one of his starts, you're like, you can kind of get, have a couple good innings, and then to be one inning, we're like, oh boy, here we go, and maybe he gets out of it, and it's an uneven start. But then you look back and you're like, well, he gave us 6 good innings, and we're in the ball game. You only gave up 3 runs, 4 runs maybe. So I think maybe we should stop having the expectations that he can't reach, and maybe just accept him for what he's giving us. And so far, he's got a great ERA. He's giving us, giving us a chance in these ball games. And like I said, if he's a back of the rotation guy, he's going to be a pretty valuable pitcher.
The spot that Michael Wacha normally maintains in the rotation, hopefully he'll be back sooner rather than later. That's been manned by the Dan Altavilla and Daniel Lynch experiment, which was not especially encouraging just the other day. So hopefully he's back soon. Again, like I mentioned, Chris Bubich is on the way back from Tommy John surgery. Hopefully he is able to go soon. When everybody is healthy, and hopefully everyone is all at the same time. So you've got Reagans and Lugo, throw in Wacha and Marsh and Lynch, and Singer and Bubich. What would your ideal 5-man rotation be for the rest of the season?
I think ideally you'd have Bubich as at number 5. Ideally you'd have a healthy Michael Wacha, right? But and I don't think he's going to be out too long. He was already throwing. The fact they sent down Lynch, I think, is a sign that they expect Wacha back pretty soon. But if we're being realistic about it, if you want to make it to the end of the year, you really need 6, 7, 8 starting pitchers, right? I mean, the Dodgers, who are playing this weekend, they've got an entire other starting rotation right now on the injured list. So you really need some depth to get through a season. And I think Chris Bubich right now is the best option if they have to turn to another starter right now. But it sounds like they're gonna really slow Wacha with him. They don't want to rush him back. They know he's got some potential, and I think they're gonna really take it easy. I think JJ Picola mentioned that they said something like, "This is his rehab year." Like they're not. I don't think they have a whole lot of expectations for him this year. So I wouldn't be surprised if we do see a trade at some point, not necessarily for a starter, but maybe for a reliever who can start. Someone like Ryan Yarbrough, who they had last year and traded to the Dodgers. Someone in that mold who can be kind of a swing man, can give them the starts if needed, if they get into a jam. Because, Daniel Lynch, I mean, again, one of those guys that shows great stuff at times, but just far too inconsistent, I think, for them to count on. So there may be a need for depth there at that point, because the Royals have been pretty lucky right now with injuries so far. But when you're talking about guys that have the history of injuries like Cole Reagans, guys that are over the age of 30, like Seth Lugo and Michael Wacha, you're probably going to need some depth at some point, because there's just the attrition rate for pitchers is so high.
We're joined by Max Rieper of Royals Review here on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. And Max, speaking of guys injured, Hunter Renfroe avoided serious injury earlier this week, and he was just starting to hit his stride, had really good numbers over the last 15 days. What's the latest on his return?
It sounds like they kind of avoided a major trouble with him. It sounds like, that it's not a full fracture, so he's not going to miss like a whole month, just a couple of weeks, which is good. I mean, even when he comes back, though, I think we're all kind of expecting his bat may not be where it was when he left off. Like obviously his last month of action, he was starting to really heat up, become a really positive force in that lineup. That toe is going to be kind of important in your swing, right? You get a lot of you land on that toe for a right-handed hitter. So he may not be exactly the same hitter when he gets back. We'll have to see what his defense is like out in right field. He wasn't a great range guy to begin with. His range may be even more limited, so he may be subjected to DH duty when he comes back. But it sounds like he's not going to be out for a prolonged period of time, which is good, because he was becoming a good bat in that lineup. And again, their outfield depth is pretty thin right now. I don't know if Drew Waters is necessarily the answer. I like that he's getting a chance to play now. I think it's a chance for him to show what he can do. But that's another spot where the Royals are probably going to want to hit the trade market and see, okay, where can we get some more depth? Not necessarily even a starter, because Renfroe has played well enough to be a starter over the last month, but maybe someone who can fill in and be that fourth outfielder and be a starter if we need him to be, because like I said, there's injuries are going to start piling up here before too long.
And another guy in the outfield who hasn't hit well for much of the season, MJ Melendez. How much of a rope does he still have with him hitting around 158 right now?
I mean, I feel like people were calling for him to be demoted a month ago, and it's like if he hasn't been demoted by now, I don't know if they're ever going to demote him. Like it's kind of a stubborn patience with him. And look, Royals' patience in players has paid off in the past, right? They were sticking with guys through struggles, with Mike Moustakas, with Alex Gordon. All those guys had their struggles, and the team was very patient with them, and it paid off with 2 pennants and a championship. And those guys developed. And look, I believe in MJ Melendez as a player. I think he's got a great approach to the plate generally. Good eye. He's got power potential. If he gets it right, he's going to be a valuable player because this defense has gotten a lot better. It's just the bat that seems completely lost right now. And I mean, I'd like to see him working on a swing in the minors. I know he's tinkering with it a little bit, and I'd rather see him tinker with it against AAA pitchers and get someone in left field who can actually produce the plate. But I do understand that their position of like, well, we project going forward he's going to be a better offensive player than maybe Drew Waters or Darian Blanco or whoever else we would put out there, because we know he's done it in the past. We know the metrics look good. I mean, he's still hitting the ball hard at times. He still has pretty good metrics. But I mean, by the eye test, yeah, it doesn't look good. He looks like he's all off balance. I know he's made some changes in the last week, and hopefully that gets him going. But certainly, the last 2 months haven't been good for him at all, and he really needs to step up and start becoming the player we think he can become.
We've got a couple more minutes with Max Rieper here on 580 Sports Talk. Max is the editor-in-chief of RoyalsReview.com, which is part of the SB Nation network, joining us here on 580 Sports Talk via the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. Are there any names that really stand out to you, Max, whether they are relief arms or corner outfield bats? Are there any names out there around Major League Baseball who you would really love the Royals to target, whether they are really unattainable dream names or more realistic targets?
Yeah, the bullpen arms has been the market I've kind of looked at the most, because I think that's the most pressing need. I think we've seen the last couple of weeks they really need some guys who can get batters to strike out. And look, the first name you think of is Mason Miller for the A's, a rookie who obviously you think the A's are going to trade anyone that's not tied down, everything but a kitchen sink. But from what it sounds like, the asking price for him is going to be unrealistic. Nothing the Royals can even offer other than Bobby Witt Jr. can make a trade like that happen. So I kind of look at his teammate, a guy named Austin Adams, who is not super young. He's kind of a late bloomer, but he's having a breakthrough year. Guy who throws pretty much nothing but breaking balls, but has had a lot of success doing it this year. I think he would be a really good asset to get and the Royals seem to have an affinity for breaking balls. I think that's one of the reasons they went and pursued James McArthur from the Phillies. But he's a guy I think that could have some success. He's got a lot of controllable years, so it's not just this year. You're looking at down the road. So he's a guy I like a lot. I think Washington. You look at the Washington Nationals; they've been out of it for a while. Guys like Kyle Finnegan, Hunter Harvey. I don't think it would take a whole lot to get them. I believe both are under contract for next year as well. So they have a little bit more of an established track record. I think you could give up maybe a top 10 prospect in your organization. No one elite necessarily, but a decent prospect. Not unlike the trade they made for John Schreiber, where they gave up a promising arm in David Sandlin, but someone like that who could help just this year and next. I think that's the kind of trade they're looking to do, because they know that this is an interesting opportunity where they're ahead of schedule and they're contending this year, but they also want someone to be here for next year when because they know they have a core that's going to be here and hopefully contending for the next few years. So that's a trade I think they're going to make, and I think they're going to make one. I think they're going to jump the market a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised if they make one maybe here late June, early July, and try to get a reliever in here that can strike some hitters out and give them some more relief options late in the game.
On the flip side, who is a movable piece for this Royals team? We know that the farm system is not especially deep, especially MLB ready at the moment. So it's not like you have a bunch of top prospects you can move for a huge name, and who knows what some of these top trade targets are going to cost. So from the Major League club or from Triple or Double A, who are some of the guys you think the Royals may be willing to part with for the right return?
Well, it depends on what the trade value for these guys is now. Like, a year ago, maybe Daniel Lynch has a little more trade value. I think there's a lot of teams that think he's fixable. Like if he is in a different organization or has the right tutelage, he can become a really good reliever or possibly even a really good starter. So he may have some value left in that regard. but certainly his last couple outings have hurt his value quite a bit. MJ Melendez is kind of interesting just because he does have potential, and I think he's underperforming. I think he's a lot better than he's been. I don't think he's a guy the Royals would want to trade, but he'd be kind of interesting-ish as a younger player who has had some struggles, and the Royals kind of need more production if they are going to be contenders this year. Does he become a player that maybe you decide, hey, we think he's talented, but it's just not going to happen here. Let's try to move him, get some value for him. Good luck. Hopefully he has a great career somewhere else. But we need to get someone who can produce right now. We can't just sit around and wait for him anymore. And then Nick Lofton is kind of interesting just because I know they were really high on him when they drafted him, but it seems like it's been a little harder for him to get opportunities. I know he's playing a little more regularly now, and certainly I don't think they're going to trade him with Michael Massey out. But Massey may be out for a while with his back issues. That's something that kind of tends to reoccur. But he may be a guy that maybe another team says we really like him as a starting second baseman. You guys obviously have Michael Massey, who you seem to believe in and is hit well. Maybe a deal can be made there. So they could be creative about things. I do think there's some upper level minor guys, arms that could be kind of interesting to other teams. But you're right. The farm system is a little thin. They're going to have to be creative if they want to make a deal for someone that can improve this team right now.
All right, Max, last thing. We've only got about 30 seconds here, and I'm sorry, but I'm going to put you on the spot. It's Bobby Witt Jr.'s 24th birthday. What is your favorite Bobby Witt moment in honor of his big day?
My favorite moment, the walk-off hit in his first, the game-winning hit on opening day, his rookie season. I was there for that. It was exciting. Whole crowd chanting, Bobby, Bobby. First moment we knew that he had superstar potential.
That's a pretty good one. There have been plenty already, and thankfully he is only 24. Royals fans, you get him for a long time. Max Rieper is the editor-in-chief of RoyalsReview.com, part of SB Nation. Go check it out. All sorts of great insight into the boys in blue. Max, thank you so much for taking the time for us, man. We'll talk to you down the line.
All right, happy Friday.
That is Max Rieper, kind enough to join us on this Friday afternoon to talk all things Kansas City Royals baseball. We've got just 1 hour left today and 1 hour left from the week. Coming up after the news, we've got our 580 Sports Talk headlines. We'll preview this weekend series between the Royals and Dodgers. We've got an unbelievable note that is deserving of plenty of ridicule from Colorado football and more, plus your text to the Top City Metal Supply text line and YouTube comments here on 580 Sports Talk from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. is the final hour of 580 Sports Talk for this Friday afternoon and for this week here on 580 AM, 104.9 FM, 580WIBW.com, and of course on the 580 Sports Talk YouTube channel. I'm Brendan. That's Spencer. Trenton is on the other side of the glass. Dan Lucero is off today. He'll be off next week as well. They've got a new baby at home. So shout out to the Lucero family. Glad everyone is doing well. Excuse me. Dan taking some well-deserved time off to hang out with the family, and we'll see him when he's back. Glad he's taking some time off for that. We've got a busy 5 o'clock hour for you today. We will get to our 580 Sports Talk headlines momentarily. I just came across a story, and it's a rumor for now, but it is a Colorado reporter had a source who was apparently on the team this past year who is alleging something so hysterically stupid, I can't believe it. And we're going to touch on it later on this hour. Have a text from the 785 on the Top City Metal Supply text line. Colorado football, huh? Big hat, no cattle, all frosting, no cake, style over substance. Wonder what Neon Dion does for his next gig. See you bought a glamorous pig in an empty poke. That is all very funny. I think this will be his final year at Colorado because his kid's leaving. Yeah. Shedeur is leaving, and that's his favorite son. And once he leaves, and Travis Hunter is his other favorite son, and once they leave, what's the point of sticking around? I am firmly in the camp this will be Dion's final year at Colorado. But we'll get to a very funny story from there coming up here in a little bit. And then we will also preview this weekend series between the Royals and the Dodgers. That is coming up here in this final hour of 580 Sports Talk. Your texts are welcome. Again, Top City Metal Supply text line number 785-272-9429. And you can leave a comment on YouTube. 580 Sports Talk is the name of our YouTube channel. We want to get to 580 subscribers on YouTube. When we get there, next week, we want to get there today. Next week, next Monday, we will do a ticket giveaway for a pair of Diamond Club seats to a Royals home game. We've got to get to our 580 subscribers, though. We need a little time to come up with the exact method we will be doing the giveaway, but next week, as soon as we cross 580 subscribers, we will do a Royals Diamond Club pair of seats giveaway. We've got to get to 580 subscribers on YouTube first, though. It is free. All you need is a YouTube account, Google, Gmail account. They're all owned by the same company. All you need is an account. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, and that is how we will get to that threshold, 580 subscribers, and then we will do a ticket giveaway for a pair of Diamond Club seats coming up next week. I think you guys can get us to 580 by the end of the show today, by 6 o'clock today. So assuming that happens, assuming we get to 580 by today, we will give away that pair of Diamond Club seats coming up on Monday's show. But you got to get us to 580 subscribers first. So go do that on our YouTube channel. Again, 580 Sports Talk on YouTube. What is the most up-to-date number we have for subscribers?
578.
578.
I was refreshing as I said that to see if we got to 79.
So we don't need to stop at 580. We would love to go well past that, but we need to get to at least 580 by the end of the show today, and then we will give away a pair of Diamond Club seats on Monday's show. You will need to be a subscriber, okay? That's the important thing here. We're not just saying subscribe and then don't worry about it. We want you to subscribe, and then you will be able to win those tickets. So go over, subscribe, and we'll have some fun with those Diamond Club seats coming up on the show on Monday. Let's get to our 580 Sports Talk headlines for today, shall we? 580 Sports Talk headlines for this Friday, June 14th. Happy Flag Day, by the way.
Yeah.
What's your favorite fact about the American, the Stars and Stripes, the American flag?
I'm not sure, but the other day I was talking to my girlfriend and she thought that day was Flag Day.
No, it's the 14th.
And I'm like, no, it's the 14th. And she was like, it's today. And I was like, definitely the 14th, but okay. And I went on my calendar. I was like, there it is.
What day did she think was Flag Day?
The 12th.
Oh, well, she was wrong.
Yeah.
My apologies to her, but it is indeed June 14th. All right, first headline for me. This is following up on our biggest story of the day from earlier today. Coleman Hawkins is the newest member of the Kansas State Wildcats men's basketball team. The former All Big Ten honorable mention, the former Illinois Fighting Illini, full-time starter over each of the last 2 seasons. He committed to K-State earlier on today. Also had offers from many schools, including SMU and LSU, but he canceled his final visit to LSU and elected to commit to K-State instead. He was, according to 24/7 Sports, the top-ranked remaining player in their transfer portal. The same can be said for The Athletic, as well as for Evan Miyakawa at evanmiya.com. He is, if you don't already know, a basketball analytics writer. 24/7 had Hawkins ranked 21st overall for the whole class. The Athletic had him 5th overall. Evan Miya had him as the number 2 player in the portal this year. Hawkins last season averaged 12.1 points a game, 6.1 rebounds, and 2.7 assists. That was his first year scoring double digits in points per game. He had been a full-time starter each of the last 2 years at Illinois, so 66, or I believe it was actually 68 games started between the 2 seasons. He also had his best shooting season of his career, over 45% from the floor overall this past season, while shooting nearly 37% from three-point range. Allegedly, as well, according to reporting from both Matt Norlander of CBS Sports and reporting of Shams Charania of The Athletic and FanDuel, who normally does reporting on the NBA, but has some college contact as well, Hawkins has agreed to a $2 million NIL package as well. Those are his name, image, and likeness rights. According to Shams from The Athletic, it is the most ever negotiated with a collective. We don't know the specifics of that. Obviously, Hawkins is not going to confirm that. K-State has also not confirmed that. We will never get official confirmation of those numbers. But allegedly, $2 million going Coleman Hawkins' way in order to commit to K-State as well, or as part of his commitment to K-State. Technically, you can't offer money in exchange just for a commitment. So along with committing, allegedly, he will be getting $2 million. That is now 3 players in the last month since May 16th that have committed to K-State through the portal that stand 6'9" or higher. Achor from Samford, he stands 6'9". Coleman Hawkins stands 6'10", and then Ugonna Onyensu, who committed last week to K-State, the big man from Kentucky, he stands at 6'11". Big deal for K-State. I was mentioning earlier, I think this is a no excuses year for Kansas State, which is a position that you should want to be in after the disappointment of the 23-24 campaign. With this roster, this should be a 4 seed in the NCAA tournament on paper,
Yeah.
a 3 seed. I mean, they've got the talent. K-State believes it's got the coach. I believe it's got the coach as well. So you've got to be a tournament team with the roster you've put together this year, and I think K-State will be. I like the Coleman Hawkins edition. I think this is a really steady piece to add for your 13th and final scholarship.
Yeah, I think it's a good piece, and I think that their fortunes on paper have changed significantly from that of when they exited the NIT.
Yes, I would say that is absolutely true. So now, I got to pull this up. I believe it was one of our pals over at KSNT who put together a list of all the, yes, it was Glenn Kinley, the sports director over at KSNT Television, who put together the scholarship list for Kansas State. Coleman Hawkins, Ugonna Onyensu from Kentucky, Doug McDaniel, point guard transfer from Michigan, Brendan Housen, the three-point shooter from Villanova, Baye Fall, the big man from Arkansas, who didn't play a whole lot last year, Achor from Samford, Max Jones from Cal State Fullerton, CJ Jones from UIC. Those are all transfers. Chimobi Ikegwaruka. I had forgotten for a moment. Chimobi Ikegwaruka. He just goes by Moby. He's a JUCO transfer as well. And then your returning players, David Gasson, Michaela Britch, Taj Manning. Michaela also goes by Buddy. And then David Castillo, your 4-star incoming freshman. That's a better roster than you had last year.
Yeah.
I don't think fall is going to factor in a ton. I don't know that CJ Jones is going to do a whole lot more than play 10 minutes off the bench at guard. I would be surprised if Ikegwaruka played a whole bunch this year.
I think that's a project for next year.
Agreed. I think fall is the same way. I think those are projects for 25-26. The rest of that rotation, though, that's better than your rotation from last season. You got to go prove it now. But that's a much better roster. That's a big, big addition for K-State. By the way, Evan Miyakawa, who we mentioned, had Coleman Hawkins as his number 2 player in the portal. He's got K-State as his number 5 overall transfer portal class this year.
Wow.
I will admit, I don't think I would not rate it that highly. I would have it ranked lower than that, but it is a very good class no matter what. And it should be a class that helps you put together a tournament team for next season.
Yeah, it really should. Before I hit my first headline, cue the Pitbull 580.
Oh,
We've hit 580.
Did we hit the threshold? Look at you guys.
We've hit 580.
Look what you did for us. Well, shout out to you guys. Keep subscribing.
Yeah.
We don't have a limit on this.
Let's get
we're
to
not
600.
Yeah, we'd love to get there. But since you got us to 580 YouTube subscribers, coming up next Monday, you got to be subscribed. So if you haven't subscribed yet, go subscribing. But for those of you who helped us out, for those of you who have been following along on our YouTube all this time, we're going to find a way to give away a pair of Diamond Club seats to a Royals home game in the near future. Details will come out, and the giveaway will happen on Monday. So go subscribe if you haven't already on YouTube. We will have the giveaway and all the details coming up on Monday's edition of 580 Sports Talk.
All right, my first headline here. This is piggybacking off what we talked about yesterday, and to start the show today with the Big 12 exploring selling their naming rights to the conference. Group of 5 leagues are also exploring selling conference naming rights. Once somebody said nothing should be off the table. We talked yesterday, Conference USA was a conference that was looking to do that, but also, according to people people involved in the discussions, told The Athletic, the American and the Mountain West are also teams that have come to the forefront on this so far. Obviously with CUSA, Conference USA, Globe Life Insurance is one of the multiple companies that have been in discussion for it to be Globe Life Insurance Conference USA or something like that along those lines. As Conference USA continues to regrow itself and bring in FCS teams up to the FBS level. The AAC's new commissioner, Tim Pernetti, I believe is how you say it. He brought up the idea of conference naming rights during his interview with The Athletic earlier this year. It remains a point of discussion with the background in sports business and private equity. Pernetti has been very open to finding new revenue streams for college sports. Quote, nothing is off the table. Just a few things, just a few conferences there. I would imagine other conferences put that on an agenda to start looking into.
I think you are spot on with that. And this is going to change the naming sponsorship. That's going to happen for everyone. It will eventually, because again, like we talked about earlier, if the whole goal is, well, we've got to keep up with everybody else. We've got to go keep up with the Big Ten and the SEC. Okay, let's say the Big 12 can get $30 to $50 million to be the All-State 12 or whatever. That's what Brett McMurphy reported yesterday, right? 30 to 50 million. The SEC is going to look at that and say, we're a bigger deal in the Big 12. They got 50? Oh, we should get at least 75, 80. We have to get more than that. Absolutely have to get more than that. And the Big Ten's going to say, well, A, we're a better conference, and B, we're a bigger conference. We have to get more money than that. We should be getting $100 million to be named, to be the Washington Mutual Big Ten Conference, or the Big Ten Conference sponsored by Citicorp or whatever. You fork it over, and somebody will. And it's just going to be a constant keeping up with the Joneses, and it's going to be a constant stream of widening the gap between the haves and the have-nots, because the other conferences are going to do the same thing. That specifically is going to keep happening. The private equity thing, I don't know. That's a little bit more concerning, and maybe will be a tougher pill to swallow. But the conference naming thing, oh yeah, that's going to change. No doubt in my mind about that. Next headline for me on today's 580 Sports Talk headlines. Actually, we have one text here that I do want to get to regarding this same topic from the 785 on the Top City Metal Supply text line. I would hope that casinos and sports books would be off the table.
Probably not.
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know that it would make a whole lot of sense for a sports book to do it, because not every state has legal sports gambling.
That's true.
Like if you let's use the Conference USA footprint, for example. Let's just use that because we've heard about that for 2 days now, along with the Big 12. Conference USA has members in Florida, Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee, Alabama, Louisiana, Texas, and New Mexico. I know for a fact that they do not have legal sports betting in the state of Texas, and that's something that I would not be surprised if it takes a long time to get there. In New Mexico, they only have it, I believe, is it in-person only in New Mexico? Yes, it is in-person betting only in New Mexico. So it's not really useful for FanDuel to sell their mobile apps on it because, well, you can't use it in that state. Amazingly, much of the rest of that conference actually does have legal sports gambling. But the Mountain West, for example, not legal in Utah. That ain't going to happen. Not legal in Idaho. Not legal in California. Wouldn't make a whole lot of sense to have a sponsorship with that conference if you're a sports book when most of the residents in those states aren't actually able to legally bet on sports. So I would say that I don't think it is likely, but I wouldn't say it is completely off the table. Whether that's the right thing, whether that's the wrong thing, that's for, other folks to determine, but I do not think that is going to end up happening. Next headline that we will get to, some big news from Major League Baseball. 2 years ago, he was one of the biggest free agent signings when Jose Abreu left the Chicago White Sox and signed with the Houston Astros. It has been an unmitigated disaster ever since then, and today, the Houston Astros outright released Jose Abreu from his major league contract. He has over $30 million left on his deal. The Astros will, of course, have to pay that out. Abreu signed a 3-year, $50 million contract last offseason to join the Astros, thinking, hey, this team just won a World Series. I can be a piece that's going to help them get back to the World Series. Since that time, in a whopping 176 games with the Astros, Jose Abreu batted .217, 275 on base, 351 slug. That is an OPS of 625. That is 26% below the league average for OPS plus. He had in that time hit 25 doubles, 20 home runs. This season alone, Spencer, how about a batting average of 124, an on base of 167, and a slug below 200? His OPS plus 4.
Wow.
Not 40, not 44, not 400, 4. Remember, OPS plus is averaged out to a 100 league average. 100. His is 4. It has been a complete disaster. He is still owed over $30 million. By all accounts, I remember from his time with the White Sox and throughout his career, just a really good guy, a good clubhouse guy, very respectful, teammates, fans. Everybody likes the guy, Jose Abreu.
I remember when he burst onto the scene with the White Sox.
Yeah, he was like an all-star as a rookie.
The next best thing.
He won an MVP in the COVID season. And it's probably over at this point for Jose Abreu. Maybe he links on with someone. White Sox will probably bring him back for a one-day contract to retire with the team. But I think we've probably seen the end of the former MVP.
Yeah. My next headline, we're going to cater to our NASCAR fans that are in the YouTube chat usually. We have a NASCAR story today. Martin Truex Jr. to retire at the end of the 2024 season. He's planning to make that announcement today at a pre-race news conference at Iowa Speedway before this weekend's Iowa Corn 350. The Athletic was the first to report the retirement at season's end. He's the 2017 Cup Series champion, 2-time regular season champion, 2017, 2023. He finished the series in second place in 2018, 19, 21. He faded into 11th last season after a stellar regular season. He's won 34 Cup races, most recently last year in New Hampshire. He won the Xfinity Series title in 04-05. Chase Briscoe is the leading candidate to take Truex's spot in Joe Gibbs Racing's lineup. The Athletic reported Briscoe's 29 and is in need of a home in 2025 because Stewart Haas Racing is closing up shop at the end of this year.
Yeah, it feels like there's been a lot of movement in NASCAR in these last couple of weeks. I am not entirely sure what it's going to make it all look like going long term.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is pretty significant. Martin Truex has been a really successful driver for a really long time.
Yeah, I mean he's one of those guys that went through that early 2000s phase of you have to climb up the ranks. Now there's just some guys that go right from truck to the main thing, the Cup Series, and then do both. He's a guy that, obviously, as I said, he won that title, the Xfinity Series title in 2005. He's a guy that I believe he got started with DEI back when Dale Earnhardt Incorporated was still a team, and he's a guy that's done a lot for this sport.
Yeah, he's a major success story. I always feel like back when I was really into NASCAR, I never really considered him one of the best, but he's been so successful for such a long time. So a great career, and yeah, the NASCAR field's going to look a whole lot different here in these next couple of years.
Especially how you can watch them too.
Well, yeah, that's true too. Next up for me, let's get to the leaderboard from the U.S. Open. Y'all know how much I love golf, but a big day for a local product. How about amateur Gunnar, and I hope I'm getting his name right, Gunnar Broyne from KU qualified for the U.S. Open as an amateur, and he's going to make the cut. Hold out on his final hole of the day to cinch up a spot in the weekend. The projected cut line is now +5. Gunnar finished at +3 today, so it looks like he is indeed going to make the cut as an amateur. That is absolutely awesome for the Kansas Jayhawk. Other notable names, again, the cut line is +5. I do believe plenty of folks are still finishing at Pinehurst number 2. That is the home of the U.S. Open this year. Ludwig Aberg is your current leader in the clubhouse. Actually, he's still on the course. My mistake. He is still on the course. He is -6 for the tournament so far. Matthew Pavone from France. He's 5 under par. He is still on the course as well. Bryson DeChambeau, he's your highest scoring or your best scoring American so far. He is 4 under. He is done for the day in round 2. Thomas Detry, Patrick Cantlay, and Tony Finau, where he be now, they are all also in the top 3 at 4 under. Other notable names who will make the cut: Rory McIlroy, he's finished today at 3 under. Hideki Matsuyama, former Masters winner, he shot a 66 today. He is 2 under for the tournament. Tom Kim, Xander Schauffele, as well as Sergio Garcia, some other names who are still 1 under for the tournament. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't recognize any of these dudes who are currently even par for the tournament. Other guys who will make the cut who you may have heard of before, Jackson Suber, who had missed a bunch of cuts on the Korn Ferry Tour and yet was still able to qualify for the U.S. Open. He is going to make the cut at the U.S. Open. Sam Bennett, 2 over. He will make it as well. Adam Svensson from Canada will get there. Brooks Koepka, Matt Kuchar, they are both 4 over. 3 over so far for Colin Morikawa. They are all going to make the cut. Notable guys who will miss the cut in all likelihood.
Biggest name on there. Big name on there.
Go ahead.
The biggest name on there is the world's #1 golfer.
Scotty Scheffler.
Yeah.
Even I knew that. Yeah, Scotty Scheffler not having a great day. Right now, he is going to miss the cut. That is remarkable with how dominant he has been recently. Some other ones, Max Homa, Victor Hovland, Ricky Fowler, who still has not really won anything meaningful in his career. Tiger Woods, still on the course. He's +7. He's 2 off the pace. He is probably not going to make it. G-Dub as well. Buddies to Tiger Woods, another Kansas Jayhawk. He is also +7, tied in 94th. Both of them pacing to not make the cut.
Apparently, Scotty was so frustrated he slammed his driver on the ground.
Dog, I didn't know how old Scotty Scheffler was until yesterday. I'm so upset. Do you know how old Scotty Scheffler is? I figured he was like 33.
I would assume right around that age too.
What? Yes,
what?
Exactly what I thought.
What?
Scotty Scheffler is 27 years old. He turns 28 a week from today.
What?
Bro, I was so mad. So mad to find out I'm 2 years older than Scotty Scheffler. Furious about that. Oh, my God. I'm sick just thinking about it again.
He's like just 6 months older than me.
All right. Any other headlines for you before we get to the roundup?
No, let's do it.
All right, let's do it. Playoff roundup time to round out the week.
It's time for the 580 Sports Talk Playoff Roundup.
Spencer lip syncing that in studio is tremendous.
Yeah.
All right, playoff roundup time. Let's start with the NHL today. The Panthers once again had a quick barrage of goals. Last night it was in the second period. They now have a 3-0 lead on the Oilers. They will finish up that series this weekend. If the Panthers can win again in Edmonton, think they'll finish off the sweep?
I want them to, but I feel like Edmonton's going to take one.
I'm going to stick with the hot goalie. I'm going to stick with Bobrovsky. The Oilers did outshoot the Panthers by, I think, almost 10 last night, and it really didn't matter. The Panthers are playing so well. Their defense has been great.
Edmonton's not winning because their number one fan went into hiding.
Who's that?
Oh, we'll just leave it at that. You didn't see that video that surfaced on Twitter last week?
No, I didn't see that.
We'll just leave it at after they won, and I can't remember which round it was, but she decided to flash.
Oh, yes.
The flasher.
I did see that.
She's going into hiding.
Flasher.
She's going into hiding now because people have found out.
Jeez.
She's not at the games anymore, though.
Well,
right?
that clearly was their good luck charm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Florida's going to get this one finished off. As for the NBA Finals, the Celtics lead the Mavericks 3-0. Game 4 is tonight down in Dallas. Will the Celtics finish off their sweep tonight? I'm going to say yes. Luka needs to have a good game after he has been just getting torched by everyone with a pulse over the last 48 hours.
Look, he hasn't been the same since the front office member took the beer out of his hand last week.
They haven't won since.
No.
Michael Finley took a beer straight out of his hand. Luka just wanted to have some suds with his pops. And Michael Finley took the beer out of his hands. They have not won since. I'm going to say the Celtics finished the sweep as well.
Yes.
I think both the NBA Finals and Stanley Cup Finals finished with a 4-0 series sweep.
Not what either or not what either league wanted.
No, certainly not. The NBA Finals game tonight is going to start, I assume it's 7:30 again. 7:30 start time. It'll be on ABC. Trenton, are you letting me know in my ear that the extender is working this game? Okay, so it will be Scott Foster who gets the call. So maybe indeed we will get to Game 5 if Scott Foster is working this one.
What's Porzingis news?
I haven't seen on Porzingis. I did see yesterday that he was feeling better and was going to hope to play. Look, man, they beat him with Xavier Tillman in the post. I think if they get Porzingis, they're certainly going to finish that one off tonight. That does it for the playoff roundup, and that will also do it for our 580 Sports Talk headlines. When we come back, a hilariously embarrassing story from Coach Prime in Colorado. That's coming up after this on 580 Sports Talk, live from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. A big thanks to everyone who has subscribed today to our YouTube channel. We did indeed get to 580 subscribers. Thank you, guys. So you are all now in the running to win a pair of seats to the Diamond Club at the K for an upcoming Royals home game. We will get you the details. We will do the giveaway on Monday's show. We want to send you and a guest, a friend, your spouse, a child, somebody you met on the street. You just want to, make sure you can brighten their day a little bit. We're going to send you to the K in the Diamond Club, those cushy seats, the food service, all of that. We'll get you the details. We will do the giveaway coming up on Monday's edition of 580 Sports Talk. Should be a fun show on Monday as well. Michael Wilhoit is going to join us, our good friend, the 7-year NFL vet, the Highland Park grad, the Washburn-Ichabod great. He is going to join us on the program to talk about the Big Kev Youth Camp. We are also going to talk to Matt Verderam, of course, for our weekly chat about all things NFL. That is coming up on Monday. Very kind word from Jeffrey in the YouTube comments. Glad that he's glad that I'm here to get to see it. Finally, a big milestone on our YouTube feed, and I was able to get to see it. Very, very pleased with that. Normally, I don't get to. You guys get to have all that fun when I'm not actually here. Have to get to this story from Colorado. So this is being reported by Steve Corder, who is the Colorado reporter for the Colorado Buffaloes Athlon Sports site. This is insane. The Colorado Buffaloes had a huge weekend for the spring game at the end of April. It was a star-studded affair, which included a concert with 5-time Grammy Award winner Lil Wayne at the CU Event Center. However, not all the details from Coach Prime's major event were spectacular. According to CU player sources, Sanders made the concert mandatory for all his players and reportedly threatened to dismiss anyone who skipped out. One source told Athlon Sports, quote, "The Wayne concert was the final straw for a few players who hit the transfer portal. When Coach Prime told us we all had to be there to support Shadur as a rapper, they were not happy at all. To be honest, it was nothing but a huge distraction, and Daddy Ball was being played."
So did Shador open up for Lil Wayne? Is that what this was about?
Yes.
Okay.
According to this source, Shadur Sanders rapped at the team event at the spring game ahead of Lil Wayne, and that was enough for a few players. They said this is too much. I think if you're Colorado, you are probably totally fine with everything that Dion has done as your head coach, because they've sold out their season ticket allotment 2 straight years. You've been in prime time on Fox and ESPN. You've had game day. You've had so many celebrities and football people go to bat for you totally undeservedly because of all this attention. You have made tons of money, tons of exposure. You've revitalized your program. Now, you haven't made it all that much better.
Yeah.
And you still had a losing record and won 1 game in conference play and missed a bowl last season. But you've gotten so much attention and money pumped into your program. I'm sure you would do this 100 times out of 100. That being said, this program is so embarrassing. Not the University of Colorado Buffaloes varsity football program. That's more of a proxy for just Deion Sanders at this point. Deion Sanders is really embarrassing.
The tenure under Deion Sanders is embarrassing.
Why am I, and this might just be a rhetorical question, why am I supposed to believe that Deion Sanders is going to be there beyond this year? What reason is there for me to believe that Deion Sanders is going to be the head coach of the Colorado Buffaloes beyond this year?
My only thought is, where would he go if he went back into media, because the NFL Network can't afford him, because they can't afford any of their people anymore. Can't go back to his cushy job being an analyst on NFL Network.
FS1. Monday mornings with Skip. That would be my guess.
Yeah.
He'll go back. Someone will pay him. Someone will find the money to pay him, because he is such an iconoclast and is such a lightning rod and draws in so much attention. Someone will end up paying him. Can you imagine telling your 3rd string left guard, sorry, hey Joe, you better be at the show on Friday night at the spring game. Better be there. Well, coach, I'm sorry. I can't make it. Shadour's playing. You got to be there.
Well, especially because it's the spring game, especially for those guys. Maybe they were going to get a little more pop in spring ball because some guys you don't play in spring ball. Some transfers you're not going to get in time to play in spring ball.
Mm-hmm.
What if their families there watching them at the spring game? Oh, I can't go eat dinner with my family because I got to go to this mandated concert.
Because I got to go watch your kid rap badly. It's so embarrassing. Now, I'm going to tell you this about Colorado. And again, it's working. Because we're talking about it.
Yeah.
On June 14th in Topeka, Kansas, and across this beautiful sunflower state, this program is talking about Colorado. Well, we're not really talking about Colorado football. We're talking about Coach Prime. I'm going to tell you this. The sexiest upset pick maybe of the entire year is going to be North Dakota State to beat Colorado week
I'm
1.
all in on that.
I'm going to be honest with you right up front. I've already put money on Colorado. That is going to be such a sexy pick. People are going to say, oh, North Dakota State, going to go to Boulder. You don't schedule that game. You don't mess with NDSU. Okay, NDSU's head coach this offseason left North Dakota State to go be the linebackers coach at USC. This ain't the same North Dakota State that it was in the past decade. They're still very good. They're still probably going to be an FCS playoff team. They ain't the same North Dakota State. Colorado's dudes, they're actually going to be healthy because it's the first game of the year. They won't have all gotten their asses kicked at this point. Shadur Sanders is probably going to put up good numbers. Their offensive line is probably going to be able to actually block against even good FCS competition, a team that only has 63 scholarship guys maximum. I'm just telling you right now, Colorado's going to win that game. They're going to puff out their chest. Everybody doubted us. They thought, oh, Colorado's this old bum, same old Colorado. No, we're different. This is Coach Prime era now.
But
and
you
then
should have won that game anyway.
Week 2, they are going to go to Nebraska. And Memorial Stadium in Lincoln, Nebraska is going to be more turned up than it has been since probably 2001. And they are going to beat the living you-know-what out of Colorado.
Oh, yeah.
That is my belief for the start of the season. All sorts of people are going to put trendy money on the Bison of North Dakota State to win that game. Colorado will win, puff out their chest, and then they will lose the next week at Lincoln. That is my belief for the start of the season. I don't have any nice things to say about Deion. He has clearly gotten all the attention on Colorado. It's not going to work. Long-term, big picture, it ain't going to work at Colorado. And I would truly be shocked if he is there beyond this year. Why would he stay there past when Shadur and Shiloh and Travis Hunter are there? I really don't think he will.
Yeah, I don't have it.
One more timeout to get to here on 580 Sports Talk. On the other side of this commercial break, we'll get you ready for Royals versus Dodgers at Chavez Ravine Dodger Stadium this weekend. That's next on 580 Sports Talk, live from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. back in the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. This is 580 Sports Talk. I'm Brendan. That's Spencer. Trenton is across the glass. Dan's still on paternity leave. Dan's first Father's Day this weekend. Happy Father's Day to all the dads out there.
That's got to be pretty cool.
Oh,
right?
I'm sure it's awesome.
Like, he finally has a new meaning to Father's Day.
Yeah.
And
it's about him now.
It's just like a week and a half after his kid was born?
Yeah. It'll be a week and a
nice.
half. Yeah, I'm sure it be a very emotional day in the Lucero household. So shout out to all the dads out there. Shout out to everyone who has stepped up in place and had to play the role of dad as well. You guys have a lot of importance and a lot of meaning too. So a lot of appreciation for all the father figures out there with Father's Day coming up on Sunday. Had a comment here from Jason on YouTube regarding the Colorado situation about the predicted wins for Colorado this year. I need to go back and check actually what the win total for Colorado is this year. I think it's 5.5, if I remember correctly, which I would certainly take the under on.
Yeah.
No question I would take the under on that. I will find it right now, in fact. Big 12 regular season wins, Colorado 5.5. Yeah, I take the under. I don't think that's a bowl team. Colorado's schedule this season is not especially encouraging. They've got to play. They play at North Dakota State. I'd call that a win. I think they lose at Nebraska. Playing at Colorado State, they should have lost last year. I will be especially generous, and I will call that a win. So I go 2-1 in the non-con. I think they might beat Baylor at home. That'd be 3. Lose to UCF. Lose to K-State. Lose to Arizona. Beat Cincinnati. Lose to Tech. Lose to Utah. Lose to Kansas. Lose to Oklahoma State. I got 4, and I was being extremely generous giving them Colorado State on the road in Fort Collins. Yuck. Very, very gross. What will hopefully not be very gross is this weekend for the Kansas City Royals. They will be in action on the road against the Los Angeles Dodgers. Tonight's game starts at 9:10 our time, pregame at 8:30 here on 580 WIBW and the Royals Radio Network. It's Cole Reagans tonight against Gavin Stone for the Dodgers. Tomorrow, Seth Lugo versus Yoshinobu Yamamoto.
That game is at 8:10.
8:10, correct.
Yeah.
And then Sunday, in earlier first pitch, it'll be Brady Singer versus Tyler Glasnow. All right, how many wins do the Royals get this weekend?
2.
2? Whoa! Optimistic. Which ones do they win?
Friday, Saturday.
Friday, Saturday. Wow. Trenton, how many are you giving the Royals this weekend?
1.
Yeah.
Spencer's a lot more optimistic than I am, but the Royals are if the Royals just win 1 game this weekend, I'd be happy because then they won 2 games this week, and they'll be 41-32 going into a 24-game stretch. It's very favorable for them, and I think that's very good instead of being 1-6 or 0-7 this week. And I thought 0-7 was a very good possibility before the walk-off yesterday, but I appreciate the optimism, Spencer. It'd be awesome if they took 2 out of 3 from the Dodgers 2 years in a row.
I think I'm optimistic because I don't have that inside fandom.
You're not scarred. You don't have the scar tissue.
Like if my team was in the position the Royals are in, facing the Dodgers after getting whooped up by the Yankees 3 out of 4, I'd probably say 1.
Maybe not feel so great about it.
Yeah, but you got 2 solid pitchers again. It's going to be a pitcher's duel, I think, the first 2 games.
I am going to go with 1. I think it's possible to win multiple. They were far worse last year and took 2 out of 3 from the Dodgers. I will say they get 1, and I will say it is tonight. Gavin Stone, if you don't know who he is, has some pretty good peripherals. His Baseball Savant page has plenty of red on it. Not one of the household names on that Dodgers roster. Tyler Glasnow has been awesome this year. Yamamoto had a really rough start to the season, a slow start to the season, but he's been really good ever since. I will say the Royals win with their ace on the mound tonight, though. Cole Reagans gets the better of Gavin Stone. I think they will drop the other 2 games this weekend. You'll be able to hear all of that Royals action coming up right here on your home for Royals baseball, 580 WIBW, coming up tonight. Any other weekend plans for you this weekend?
Get better from whatever I've got right now.
Feeling kind of down? A little sick?
Yeah, a little congestion.
Yeah, it's going around. I was dealing with that while I was on vacation last week. Not pleasant. And I apologize to my in-laws because as we were finishing up the trip, I think it was the Friday of our trip, right as we were leaving for Las Vegas, my sister-in-law and my mother-in-law were both complaining of having congestion, and I thought, well, I definitely gave that to you because I had it first. So my apologies to the two of them. Final plans for me this weekend. We'll get to the final word after this commercial break. I'm going down to Wichita tomorrow. I'm going to go see the Wind Surge play. My wife and I making our weekly trip down to Riverfront Stadium to go see the Wind Surge. Looking forward to it. It's fun ballpark, always fun time at minor league baseball. So looking forward to that coming up tomorrow afternoon. We have to get to one final commercial break. When we come back, we'll wrap up this week of 580 Sports Talk with the final word here on 580 Sports Talk from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. Wrapping up 580 Sports Talk for the day and for the week from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. Final word time, Spencer. You're up.
As I mentioned, hopefully I feel better this weekend, but my bachelor days are numbered here. The last 2 full weekends of being a bachelor coming up.
For you?
Yeah, before my girlfriend moves in.
Oh, I was going to say, whoa, when did this engagement happen? Okay, moving in.
Bachelor.
That's exciting.
As in a bachelor pad.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, enjoy the solitude while you have it.
Yes, and then we'll have a busy weekend the 29th, so I won't be able to enjoy a weekend.
Okay, yes, definitely enjoy. Don't do anything. That would be my advice. Do not do a single thing. My final word for today, I understand the pros, why the Big 12 wants to sell its naming rights, why it is thinking about getting some private equity, some venture capital pumped into the conference. That's a lot of money that can go to a lot of different places for NIL, for coaching salaries, player retention, paying off debts, all of those things. I understand it. But if you're talking about what is college sports supposed to be, is that toothpaste out of the tube? Honestly, probably. But if you want to keep any glimmer of that original meaning together, you can't go down that private equity rabbit hole. Selling the conference name, though, that's probably a foregone conclusion. We're back. The two of us plus Trenton coming up on Monday. We'll have a full show. We'll have that Royals Diamond Club giveaway to get to. We'll talk to Michael Wilhoit. We'll talk to Matt Verderam. Enjoy the weekend. Enjoy Royals baseball. For the guys, I'm Brendan. This has been 580 Sports Talk.